Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of August 23rd, 2023. The City Council meets all requirements of the Washington State Open Public Meetings Act. Community members are welcome to join either in person, remote via Zoom, or by calling in. For those who wish to participate in a future meeting on Zoom, you'll find the instructions to register for public comment on the City of Everett website under the City Council Department. Please note, we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin.
Here.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Schwab.
Excused?
Councilmember Fossey.
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Here.
Councilmember Vogely.
Here.
Vice President Toohey.
Here.
President Stonecipher.
Here. Councilmember Ryan, would you please lead us in the flag salute?
Absolutely. Please stand if you are able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, thank you. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Shahoksh people, and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Now do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the August 16th meeting?
Councilmember Ryan moves approval of the August 16th meeting minutes.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ryan.
Yes.
Councilmember Fossey.
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely.
Yes.
Vice President Toohey.
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Franklin.
Good evening, Council President. I received word this afternoon that Mayor Pete Kinch passed away, and so request that you keep his family in your thoughts and prayers as they grieve that loss, and certainly at a future meeting would like to share a few more words about his service as mayor of our city. And then it is my honor to invite forward Chief Templeman to swear in 2 new Everett police officers.
Come on, 2 new Everett police officers. All right, good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. As always, one of my most favorite things to do is to stand before you and introduce new police officers that are coming onto the force, and tonight we get to introduce 2 to you. So I'm going to start with Brent Fakema. Brent was born and raised in Oak Harbor, and after graduating Oak Harbor High School in 2007, Brent entered the workforce and served various cities and counties throughout Washington State in the road maintenance field. Prior to joining the Everett Police Department, Brent worked for the Washington State Department of Transportation for the last 8 years as a lead technician for highway maintenance. Brent enjoyed his role as a public servant with the Department of Transportation, but wanted to expand that duty and give more of himself to his community in a career that would challenge him, and law enforcement provides that opportunity for Brent. When researching potential police agencies, it was important for Brent that he felt welcomed and that his future department be supported by the community and city leadership. He felt that support here in Everett and knew that we were the right fit as he began his law enforcement career. Brent graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy on August 17th, and he looks forward to getting out on patrol and interacting with community members. Brent and his girlfriend Nicole live in Lake Stevens. In his free time, Brent likes to play golf around Western Washington, wake surf with friends and family on Lake Stevens, and trained for a sprint triathlon that he competes in every summer. All right, thanks. Next, I'd like to introduce Tessa Lynn Sutton. Tessa Lynn was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. She attended California State University, Long Beach, where she received her Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice and Criminology in 2015. Tessa is currently working on her master's degree in early childhood development from Eastern Washington University. Prior to being hired by the Everett Police Department, Tessa worked as a judicial assistant for the Everett Municipal Court. She has been drawn to public service since she was a child, and thanks to her father, who is a pastor, She shares in his belief that the best way to serve your community is to identify its needs, try to impart change, and actively participate in finding solutions. Becoming a police officer embodies these things for Tessa. When considering departments, Tessa knew she wanted to work in a community in which she lives and to help impart the change that she wants to see. Tessa hopes her interactions as a police officer will inspire other people of color in our community to join law enforcement. Tessa graduated from the Basic Law Enforcement Academy also on August 17th. It's not listed here in some of the comments that were prepared, but I know she was the vice president of her class, and that is certainly a position that demonstrates leadership, and we love to see that, especially in our new recruits that are just starting their career. Tessa's excited to begin her field training and looks forward to the never-ending learning this profession will bring. Joining the EPD family with Tessa, her husband Devontae, and her two beautiful children that are here today. And in her spare time, Tessa enjoys Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, being outdoors, and spending time with her family. So, Council, I present to you Brett Fackema and Tessa Lynn Sutton for swearing in. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to accept Teslin Sutton and Brent Backema as our newest members of the Everett Police Force?
Yes, I move the motion.
Seconded.
A motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes. And the clerk will administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Brett Patton,
I, Tesla Sun. Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I am a citizen of the United States
that I am a citizen of the United States
or a lawful permanent resident,
or a lawful permanent resident,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and the Charter and ordinances of the City of Everett,
and the
Charter and ordinances of the City of Everett,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
honestly, and impartially
honestly and impartially,
perform the duties of police officer
perform the duties of police officer
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
All right, this first one?
Thank you.
Successfully.
Good job. Wait. Good job. I believed you for 2 minutes.
Congratulations to both our newest officers, and thank you to the families. And with that, no further comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go on to public comment and council comments and liaison reports, we have guests here tonight from Snohomish County Jail to brief us on some of the services that they are providing. And I think, as I mentioned to my colleagues a couple months ago, I went over and visited with Sheriff Fortney and his team, just to kind of find out what was happening at the jail as they come out of COVID, and some of the services that they're providing to people who are incarcerated and need medical and other types of services in the jail. So I was so impressed with what I heard that I invited them all to come back here tonight and share it with all of us. So Sheriff, you want to introduce your team to us?
Thank you for having me today. You guys hear me okay?
You gotta press the button.
There you go.
There it is. How's
Yeah,
that sound?
you're- you're
Much
hot.
better?
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President, for the invitation. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for having us here tonight, and thank you to all the council members. I'm just going to start by a few general opening remarks. I know we are here to talk about the jail, and we'll get to that. I brought some subject matter experts behind me, which will probably be way more interesting than what I have to say, because they're really good at what they do, and I am excited about what we have going on at the Snohomish County Jail. First and foremost, I want to thank you all, and for Chief Templeman behind me, for the ongoing partnership between the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, the City of Everett, and your police department here in the city. I've been here in this position for going on 4 years now, and the partnership that your chief and your mayor and the City of Everett has shown me, I am very humbled and grateful for the kindness that they have shown me over my first term in office. The Snohomish County Jail, I am very proud of what we have going on in the Snohomish County Jail, and we will get into those programs. I wanted to highlight one thing that sometimes gets lost that I think is very important to the City of Everett and the City of Everett's Police Department. We are the only large jail in the state of Washington that remained open all during the pandemic. What that means is we had no booking restrictions. We were the only jail to do it. Some people thought I was crazy when I lifted them. We were shut down for about 3 weeks when the pandemic started. But what I want to report back to you is we did that with a lot of thought and a lot of effort and a lot of work by every single man and woman in our corrections bureau. We could not have pulled it off without them. And so that makes a difference when it comes to anybody, any agency who books into our jail. We have been able to do that for all since the pandemic started in the early stages of 2020. I am proud of that. I give them all of the credit, and we have done that without one outbreak of COVID-19 during that entire time. So not only did we do it, what other jails weren't doing, we absolutely kept people safe. That was at the forefront of all we should be doing. Although I'm excited to report that news to you guys, I'm just as excited for the folks behind me to talk about what we are doing in the Snohomish County Jail. As I said, we've been open for the whole time during the pandemic and after, but what's more important is once we have these people in our custody, our inmates, what are we doing? That is just as important to me as being able to book into our jail. I don't want to run the third largest jail in the state of Washington and be known for just where we house people. I'm not into that. I'm a second chance guy. I believe people deserve second chances, and we should not just be four concrete walls where we book somebody in and they do not have access to services. I believe in public safety in 2023. We need to be doing both while they are in our facility, and I think we are doing that. So with that, I'm the elected sheriff, and then next, the person who runs the jail is Bureau Chief Scott Robertson, so I want to introduce him to everybody. Come on up, Scott.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us today. I brought a couple people with us today. One is Major Alonzo Downing. He's second in charge of the jail. He's been with the jail for a couple decades, over a couple decades, 26 years. And then one of our nursing supervisors, Nancy Rote. So Nancy's here to provide a PowerPoint presentation for you all. After that, if you have questions during the PowerPoint, please ask them. I think we have about 5 pages. We kind of went in depth with it. We had a chance to meet with the president and a couple of your members, actually with a tour in that. And I thought that it was important that we covered a lot of the stuff that we do inside the jail that isn't normally seen by the people either in government or by our community. And I think once you get to see it behind the doors, you understand how empathetic we are and how progressive we are compared to any jail in the nation right now. So anyway, Nancy, I'm gonna give it to you for the PowerPoint, and thank you for having us.
Okay. My name is Nancy Roach. I am one of the nursing supervisors over at Snohomish County Jail. And we're gonna present some of the things that we do over in our jail, some of the programs that we offer. Some of the programs that we do offer chaplain services. They can kite and request. So a kite is a piece of paper that they will fill out. If they cannot read or write, we will help them fill that out so that they can get the things that they need. They can kite for the following. They can kite for Bibles. They can kite for prayers, books, one-on-one visitations, religious diets. We honor those. Prayer and towel rugs. We also honor those. The jail transition services, screening for the jail treatment, evergreen recovery. We have an on-site coordinator. We do have mental health services. We have MHPs or mental health professionals that are staffed at the jail that go and meet with folks that either have a need that they've asked to see them, or sometimes they have a need they haven't asked to see them, but we will check on them just to make sure that they're mentally stable and have the things that they need. We do catch up to myself here. The Office of Neighborhood Liaison, the Carnegie Resource Center, Apple Health, and Veterans Benefits SSI resources for our inmates or our patients. Inmate worker screening and assignments. So we have an inmate worker program. In order to be an inmate worker, a nurse is going to go meet with them, make sure that they are physically fit, that they won't be able to hurt, or they're not going to hurt themselves while they're working. You have a lot of folks that want to work and maybe sometimes they're not actually physically able, but they still have that want to do it. And so we make sure that, that they're going to be safe while they're doing it, because they work in the kitchen, they work in laundry, those type places. And so we want to make sure that they have range of motion, and then, you know, they know how to properly lift, and that they know how to properly do things so that we don't hurt anybody and they don't hurt themselves. The Into Work through Airmark services, really proud of that. That is where inmates that enter our food services program, they can actually go through with Airmark, offers a program. They can get their certification for their food handlers, to where when they get out, they now have their certification. They can go get a job in a food service industry. I believe that we also have some restaurants.
Yes, so just to elaborate a little bit on that, like the sheriff said earlier, second chances. That's what we're all about. We have individuals that come to jail for all sorts of reasons. They come to jail, we looked at it and was like, hey, what program can we bring to the jail to help these individuals so when they walk outside the facility, they're able to go and maybe be employed, gainfully employed somewhere. Give them some sort of skills while they're there. So we talked with Aramark, and they have this program, Into Work, and this is where the Into Work program came about. We collaborated with Aramark, brought the program to the facility. To date, we have approximately like 25 people that graduated this program that received certificates for this, certifications for this. To date, so that's where the program all started, and we're pretty proud. You may say the numbers are small because we started this early this year. You may say the numbers are small, but with the ADP or the out-of-jail population right now, with where it is right now, it's really hard to get inmates to want to go down and work in the kitchen and do that type of work. So we're doing a number of different things to get them incentives to go down there to do it, you know, to gain a certificate so they can walk out with some work skills. So.
And there are certain restaurants also that give us their numbers for contact for hire? Yes,
so we have vendors that do send us information. So when these inmates graduate, we hold a little graduation ceremony at the jail. When they, on graduation day, part of the graduation, they not only do they get a certificate, but then they get information from different vendors that are saying, hey, when those people graduate, send them my contact information so that they can contact me when they get out. So.
Do they get paid wages while they're in jail, these jobs, or are these volunteer?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am. They don't get
Tell them what
paid.
they do.
We got some incentives. We have incentives that they get, you know, while they're working,
See.
and it's a number of different things, and most of it is food. Extra, you know, food that they wouldn't normally get, you know,
I can
like
relate.
pizza. I mean, so it's incentives that they get. They get more time out. It's just a number of other things that they get. More tablet access, you know, when they can, you know, schooling from the tablets, they can do schooling, they can do, you know, movies, games, et cetera. So they get extra incentives that way.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So you said you had 25 that have gone through the certification process?
Yes.
Since, was that started this year?
Early this year, the end of last year, we started this program.
And how many of them are still incarcerated, and how many have been released?
I don't have that number. We have a turnover. The turnover for inmate workers we have a frequent turnover for inmate workers, because these are people that are in custody on low-level charges, misdemeanors, so they don't stay in jail long.
Yeah. I was just wondering, because if you had 25 graduates go through the program, how many of those actually ended up in jobs? Do you have data on that?
I do not. I do not have data on that.
We also have barber services that come in to the jail. Our folks can sign up to see the barber and get some new Dapper Dan haircuts, which don't have that opportunity on the out, so it's something that we're proud of. Commissary services that we have, they are allowed to buy commissary. I don't have a commissary list in front of me to run through with you. I apologize for that. But they can, different foods that they want.
I want
Certain
to
clothes.
go back to that question, you know, because when they graduate and stuff and they leave the jail, we do follow-ups, but some people just don't return calls. So we do follow-ups because we want to see if, you know, if this is working. If you know, them getting that certificate, if they're going to use it. So we've done the follow-up calls to see if, you know, how these individuals, if they did get the job. But it's just getting the call back or if the phone works.
Yeah, I know that data part is really difficult, but, and I know when we had toured the jail, we had asked for a lot of information that could be sent over with regard to any statistics, and I don't think that we've received that yet. So if any of the data that you do have available that we had asked for during that tour about any of the incarcerated individuals who is currently there, what their average tenure is, all of those other questions that we had asked, I would love to get that information. I know once they're released, it's very difficult to get information, but when we find programs that really, really work or that are really, really helpful, having that data is great so that we can use that to say, this is what we need to put our resources towards. So even if you have efforts where you're reaching out to folks and you are able to track down some of them and have some success stories, those are even helpful, even if, you know, a chunk of the list is, well, we couldn't reach out and find out what, you know, happened to this person, or we do know that this person, you know, this was their recidivism rate, et cetera.
Yeah, thank you. And I do remember you asking those questions.
Sorry, it was a lot of questions, I
Yeah,
know.
no, part of it is your own police department. So the information that you would probably want to get would be through the chief of your department and tracking those people that you arrest and that you book and that are released after that. The other piece for us is, it isn't just about the metrics. We can actually see a physical change in the people when they go through these programs. That's why we're going to be instituting another program called Workforce in our jail as well. We're meeting with them next month to try and bring into that program into our jail as well. Their heads higher. You're going to see so these pictures that you see, this one's just a shot of a poster, but the pictures you're going to see on the screen weren't photoshopped from the net. They were actually photographs from inside of our jail. And so I'm kind of proud of that as well. But the metrics is a piece, and we need to do better with the metrics. I completely agree. But the one thing that we see with all the graduates in our jail, and especially the workers that work for us, because we couldn't do our jail, we couldn't operate, they serve our food, they make the food, they do our cleaning, they do our laundry, they clean for us. And so just their perspective of having hope and having something that's behind them to create this kind of engagement with us, even, and that support that they get from the other inmate workers of that continued success to get back on their feet and to do something that's viable and that's worthwhile, that they can not only start in the jail, but they can transition out of the jail as well. And we see that, and you can't put metrics on that. You can't put and I'm a metrics guy. I run our analyst group as well. But I think we can do better on metrics. I completely agree with you. I'd like to see the back end of that as well, better than what we've already shown you. But the intangible piece to this is something you just can't put metrics on, and it's something that's there. You can see it, and hopefully when you did your tour, you could see it as well with the inmate workers.
Oh, it was great going through, and you had so much amazing things to share, and I was very, very impressed with it. It was more of, I don't think that. Are you saying that I need to go to our own police department to find out what the average length of stay is in your facility, or is it,
No, we have all that data. In fact, we'll be turning that out to the public here in 2 weeks, I believe, through our analyst. So
Okay.
we have average daily population, we have mean, we have, everything we have, all that information. The only thing that we don't have yet is xylazine or tranq. We've ordered it from the manufacturer to be able to trace or track how many people are coming in under the influence of tranq. But we're getting data on fentanyl, meth, heroin, and she's probably going to talk about that more in our continuing slides. But no, we collect everything. We have data for everything that comes inside of our jail. And so we have that data. In fact, we'll be at public-facing dashboard here in the next 2 weeks. You'll be able to see. I'm sorry you don't have it yet, but we have all that data available.
Okay, so, but I'm just making sure you do have the list of questions that we had asked?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't need to actually turn that over to our own police department to get that information, you're gonna provide it?
Well, some of the things like you're asking
And some of
for,
it
like
will be publicly,
food
yes, but for
services
the-
or that for your arrestees, that would be we probably won't be tracking that because it's very difficult to get that number on the outside. If you want to put to a program within your city about the people that were arrested inside of your city and that get out of the jail, that's kind of different metric than for us for the countywide because the demographics are so different around the county. But I agree, we should be collecting that data. How we collect it is another question, so.
So Councilmember Fossey, if you have any questions for our police department, just share and we'll get back to you.
I don't think it actually relates to our police department, so
Okay.
that's what I was trying to clarify.
Okay.
Councilmember Vogely?
I'm just going through the daily releases and just for people's information, even though you already know that, you can find it online as they're saying. And I bet the thing that's coming up is going to be even better than like all of this. But for instance, I've gotten down to Fs for Fraser, and there's 10 that's been in there 3 days, 7 days, 2 people, 1 day, 4 people, 12 days, so it runs the gamut, but it looks like there's a majority of folks that have gotten out today that were only in jail for 3 days. So I imagine there is not enough time to get a certificate, but then there's people in there for 3 years or 2 months, and I don't know how long it takes, but that is a little bit of information that is readily available with the internet. And this is your presentation.
Okay.
That is all true.
It's all true. And one thing I would like to touch on what the chief said, the physical change. As a nurse, we meet with every single person that is booked into our jail. The first thing they do is they come in and they're going to meet with a nurse, and we're going to make sure they're physically fit for jail. And when they come in and they are not doing well, they are the addicted sometimes, they have substance use disorders, sometimes polypharmacy use disorders. They come in and they, most of the time like this. And you really have to work to get them to engage and those type things. When they do this inmate worker program, the physical change in them, because they hold their heads up, they make eye contact with you, they have pride in what they do, they train each other, they support each other. I'm very proud of our inmate worker program. I really am. And I think that they are also very proud of it. And it's just that physical change in them that you can see, when you go down into the kitchen versus the first day that I worked with this person, and then all of a sudden they're over here. It is night and day difference in them. And so that is something that we'd like to, of course, build on, and that's why we do these second chance into work, and then with the workforce program that we're going to be introducing too, just so that these folks remember what it is to have a little bit of pride in what it is that they do. So it's a good thing in my heart, I believe that. Back to our thing. Okay. So family and friends may also purchase hygiene clothing items from commissary. Family members, let's say somebody maybe doesn't have the means, family members can come and put money on their books, that's what they call it, and so that they have money to spend in commissary to get some of the little extra things that make them feel, a little bit better about being there. And a lot of it is food items, but clothing items, those type things too. And so they have that opportunity to do that. And we try to make sure that what they have is picked and packed and safe for all of us involved, including them.
And if you don't have any funds, we have what they call indigent packages that are readily available also that we provide.
The Inmate Welfare Fund, that is,
It's a lot.
it's what?
It's a lot, probably skip over a lot of that.
Okay, but you can see that the inmate benefit, the incentive program, pizza, theater, socks, insoles, those type things. And some of these things are just nice to haves, not necessarily, need to haves. Direct TV subscriptions, Netflix, the reading glasses, hygiene, clothing items, and a lot of these guys come in, or girls, they haven't had any kind of hygiene items in a very long time. And so, it's important that we make sure that we get those to them. Employee salary expenses, some of that stuff, haircuts, barbers, some of that stuff we already touched on, but medical services, my favorite. Oop. So this is our dentist. This is Dr. Alan Baker. He has been our dentist at the Snohomish County Jail for a very long time, and I'm not exactly sure how many years, but it's been a very long time. We do substance use disorder withdrawal patients. Those patients are going to go to a special housing module. They go to medical housing. Medical housing, you meet with a nurse every single shift. Every shift, we're gonna come check on you, we're gonna run vitals on you, we're gonna talk to you, we're gonna see how you're doing. Fentanyl withdrawal is terrible. It is terrible. It is painful. It is terrible. So what can we do to help these folks get through that? And some of the things that we do is we use Subutext. Subutext is it's an opiate style drug, but it is not an opiate. It'll sit on that same receptor, so that calms that withdrawal down, so it's not as bad. We get them through that, we'll put them on a taper, so they'll get so many milligrams this day, so many milligrams this day, and so many milligrams this day. That'll get them through their withdrawal. Once they are graduated from their withdrawal, they'll go up to a unit where they can meet with Ideal Options, who runs our Subutext program over at the jail. If they meet their criteria, we'll put them on a MAT program. That's the medicine, I still can't get it out. It is the Medicaid, there you go, medical assisted treatment. I don't know why I couldn't say that. And then when they meet that, so then we do balloon dosing over at the jail so that we can make sure that we get them on this drug before they get back out. We do warm handoffs in the community. Ideal Options has clinics from the Canadian border all the way down to Oregon and as far east as Idaho. They can walk into any one at any time and get help from these folks. Other medications, things that we do comfort meds for them. The thing that we have to wait so long before we can start that Subutext taper, because if you give it too soon, you're going to make them sicker. So we do comfort meds until it is time that they can receive the medication that's going to make them feel so much better and be able to get through their withdrawal safely. Because fentanyl withdrawal can be very dangerous, and we want to make sure that our folks are safe over there. Every single person in Snohomish County Jail, every officer, every deputy, every nurse carries Narcan on them. And everybody, and for ourselves and for our patients. We've been seeing a major increase in overdose because they're putting, I saw a question, what is xylazine or what is tranq? So xylazine is a anesthetic that's not meant for human consumption. They actually put down large animals with it. And unfortunately, they're also putting it in their fentanyl. There is no antidote for it. All you can do is you try to give them the Narcan as quickly as you can, which will reduce some of the opiate effect, and then you give them breathing support until they can get over to a hospital. And then they're going to have to watch them, give them that breathing support until it works its way out of their system. So every inmate that comes into our facility gives a urine sample, so we know exactly what they're on. And then anybody that comes in on an opiate, fentanyl, those type things, they're all given free Narcan when they leave. It is placed into their property, it is not a charge to them, and they get to take that. In that Narcan package, there is Narcan, there is the flyer for the community outreach, Carnegie. There is instructions, of course, on how to use Narcan. There is also a suicide prevention flyer that goes in there with all the appropriate numbers in case somebody, needs that information. Yes, sir.
Councilmember Vogely was talking about some short stays of a few days.
Yeah.
And I've heard that one of the more dangerous times for someone coming out of a jail environment and having been detoxed is then not being able to take the kind of doses of drugs that they were used to going in there, and that's an overdose danger. These kinds of programs that people go through, how long do those typically take? Is that a 3-day thing, or is that a 10-day thing, or a 30-day thing?
So we're finding with fentanyl, they're staying in a detox unit sometimes upwards of a week. The taper that they're going to go on is a 3-day taper, but we're going to watch them during that time. If they're doing really, really well on it, great. If not, we're probably going to extend the taper.
So the people that Councilmember Vogely was talking about who were in for several days, that would not be someone coming in with a substance use disorder problem, because they wouldn't be there long enough to actually be.
It depends on what their charges are. You have some folks that come in, their stay is longer depending on their charges, but they also have a substance use disorder with it. So they'll start out in med housing, we'll get them through their detox, get them on the appropriate meds, and then they can do whatever else their charge time requires of them. And you are correct. Any short detox, anything like that, your chance for overdose, if you go back and use the same amount, is much, much higher. We do educate our folks on that. Anybody who starts a Subutext program or a Subutext, even the taper with us, they have to sit down, they have to review it with the nurse. We do informed consent. We let them know, listen, we really prefer that you don't use again, but if you have to use again, only use half of your dose. We try to educate them on the fact that even a short detox is going to increase their chance for overdose. So, yes.
Can you talk to them about what's happening with the Narcan issue on their release and what they're doing with it?
Yeah, so as nurses, we put Narcan, if they come in, they pop for opiates in their urine, we place Narcan into their property. Upon release, you'd actually be amazed at how many times they say, I don't want this, and they give it back. I don't want it. Okay. You have some folks that when you do Narcan them, will come up swinging, they are mad because you have ruined their high. And unfortunately, you know, with the substance use disorder patients, that type of mentality runs really hard and heavy through them. So it's amazing to me that you wouldn't want Narcan, because it's not necessarily, maybe you don't need it, but maybe you could save someone in your group, and that's how I try to explain it. Say, hey, you know, we have a Narcan program, and you'd be surprised, I don't want it, and they'll give it back, they don't take it. And so I don't have statistics on that, but we see it a lot. I have the release deputy come back sometimes with a bag and says, you know, and then we try to redistribute it, because that's all you can do.
I think that's part of the interest that you've seen here in terms of the work programs, because if you come out with no place to go, no direction, no
Agreed.
contribution, no identity, no community other than the one that was using drugs, the likelihood is you'll be there, and to some degree,
Right.
some sense of success in work and value and that sort of thing is maybe the best, at least short-term protection we can give them.
I agree, and that's why we're proud of our programs that we have over there, because it does give them a sense of pride, and you do see that change in them.
Thank you.
Vice President Tui and then Councilmember Ryan.
Yeah, I just was curious, how many detox beds do you have? I mean, how many inmates can you guys handle at one time, kind of coming down?
Well, medical housing unit, you can house 44, and then you have overflow units. You have some of the other ones that you have to overflow them into, so you can have anywhere from 10 to 60.
Yes,
I mean, just
it's-
depends on the day.
Yes, it's a constant change.
And it's always
From
fluctuating.
week to
Just
week.
curious what your max was, so, okay.
Well, in that one unit, it's 44, but you have other units that we can overflow to. So
Right.
if we don't have room in this one, we're going to open up other units and assign nurses over there.
Got it, thank you.
Yeah, with that population, it just requires us to just manage it, and then we'll end up having to open up another unit if we have to manage that population.
Oh, okay. And Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. And thank you, Vice President Tui. I have two questions now. One, first question is, of those 44 beds, generally how many are occupied?
All of them.
So
And
are
it's-
you,
And it's more than 44 beds. It's
That's just
44 beds in that one
one
unit.
unit.
right?
Yeah.
But we have another unit that we use as a detox also, which has 64 beds.
So can you give an approximation of how many beds are filled at any given time?
I was somewhere right along 65, 70.
Thanks. And then I think if I'm, pardon me, Councilmember Zarlingo, if I misspeak, but I believe the question that was asked was referring to Councilmember Vogel's question about the 3-day stays. Is there a possibility that any of those people released on day 3 are still in the middle of detoxing?
Yes, there's a possibility for that.
Okay.
There absolutely is. And that's why we do informed consent. So let's say somebody's not physiologically stable to be released to the street. We're going to send them to the hospital and make sure that they have the needs, that their needs are met.
I would say
Because-
most of our people that we're releasing now, because our holds on average is between 2 and 5 days, are still detoxing. And so they never reach a point where they have clarity, where they can make a decision, because treatment is voluntary. It isn't imposed unless it's by court order, and they're not there long enough to get a court order from a judge. So most of our people that we're releasing onto the streets are still detoxing, and they're jonesing for fentanyl when they come outside of our jail. And the other thing about Narcan is not only are they not taking it from us when we're releasing them, is the garbage can that's right outside of our exit door is filled with Narcan, unopened boxes of Narcan every day as well, that we're trying to fish out of there as well. So, yeah, it's a revolving door, unfortunately, and part of the proliferation is because they're just not reaching a point where they can reach that clarity where they can say, okay, I want to change, I want to get into one of our MAP programs. And so that's the biggest issue for us, is that the length of time to detox, like what Nancy was talking about, between 5 and 7 days. If they don't reach that point, the 5 or 7 days, they'll never get to a point where we can even offer them a MAP program entrance. So that's one of our huge issues inside the jail right now, and why we're seeing the intensified drug use out in the streets.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So for the folks that are being released out the back door, are they being released regardless of where their point of origination and point of arrest was?
Yeah, once they're released, we don't have any control of them. By law, they're free to go. So if we were to take them and mandate that we have to transport them and all that, that would have to be through a court order by a judge. So when they're released, sometimes they're released inside the courtroom, sometimes they're released inside of our jail. So it just depends on what the judge decides there.
So if a person is arrested in the far corner of the county.
I know where you're going with this. Yes, you're right.
And they're released on day 3, and they're experiencing withdrawals and substance use disorder, and they're jonesing, as you said.
Yep.
They're being released onto the streets of Everett.
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is one of our exam rooms. We do have a fully functional clinic upstairs. We have 3 exam rooms. This is just one of them. We also have, I guess we can go with ideal options here. So we already did Zemtex, we did the warm up, but let's talk about therapeutic health services. So we have some folks that are on a methadone program, that are on that methadone program when they are arrested and they come into the jail. We do not mix methadone and Subutex. The nice thing about the THS services that we have there is they can call, they leave their name and number, and THS will come to the jail and dose them. So we make sure that they get the meds that they need, especially if they're already in that program. We want to make sure that we keep that going so they're not missing those days. And THS does a great job. A lot of times they come in at nighttime, they'll leave them a message. There's not even anybody there to answer the phone. They are in the next day to dose them. So we're really pleased with them. And then Airmark Nutritionist available for medical department consult. You'd be surprised at how many allergies they have. Sometimes you have diabetics come in with a multitude of allergies. So Airmark has a dietitian, and they will go through, look at their allergies, what their calories need to be, and they will get them set up on their proper diets also, which is also very helpful. We see a lot of diabetes. We see a lot of hypertension, and hypertension unfortunately also runs when they're detoxing, but we have a bad methamphetamine problem out there also, and it just drives those blood pressures up to sometimes a dangerous level. So we want to make sure that our providers are looking at that and that we're getting those things treated for those folks. Some folks come in, they don't even know they have high blood pressure, and all of a sudden, here they are, and we'll get them started on their meds. We can call in their meds for 30 days after upon release to make sure that they can continue on those medications to whatever pharmacy, that they need, and always, of course, advise them to follow up with primary care. A lot of these folks don't have primary care, and unfortunately, the medical services that they receive are the ones they receive at jail. High protein drinks and diet for underweight inmates. We have some inmates that come in that the medical word is cachexic, but they're so thin that their bodies have started to eat their own muscle structure. And a lot of times you'll see that with methamphetamine abuse because they're speed up their metabolism so much. And they're not taking care of themselves. And so we make sure that when they're there that they are getting those high calories and that we're getting that protein in them so that they can help heal their bodies while they're detoxing and those type things. This is Dr. Walmakoya and ARNP Christie Siders. These are 2 of our providers. They work in our clinic. They're there 5 days a week, and then they're on call. So we always have a doctor on call 24 hours a day. If we have medical emergencies, they attend. If we have somebody up on the unit that maybe is not coming down to clinic, they will actually say, okay, well, we'll just go up there and we'll see them. So we try to cater to them as much as we can. They need to come down to the clinic, though, because we have certain things in the clinic. We want them to come down there so that we can provide adequate care for them. But they'll do house calls, to try to build that trust with them and get those inmates down there and to be able to work with them. And you'd be surprised at what our doctors can do and get them, going on the right trail and on the right track and make sure that we're getting them back to that healthy being that they were. Or let's say they have, with this new tranq drug coming out, we're going to be seeing a lot more wounds, really bad ones. And so we're also providing wound care while they're there and teaching them how to perform wound care on the outside when maybe they don't have the means. They're not going to go to a pharmacy and buy sterile gauze, but what they can do is they can go and get like CHC has a really nice pharmacy program. The dollar store now carries gauze, Band-Aids, those type things that can also help them out. And so we try to give them all that information so that when they're out, they can also help themselves when they need that. The community resource, the Carnegie, again, that is given. They have all the numbers, the contact numbers, that's all given to them upon release when they have it in their Narcan bags. And for anybody that asks, we can get that information to them too. And you have a lot of these guys that have been there before. They know which resources are out there. They'll ask you for it, which is, that's good, right? I mean, they advocate for themselves a little bit, which is good. This is one of our mental health professionals. So these guys and gals, underappreciated in my opinion. but they do a lot of our mental health stuff. We also have 2 ARNPs. They are psych ARNPs that can prescribe psych medications and check on these folks to make sure that they're having what they need. MHPs will meet with them. Maybe you have somebody that comes in jail and says, I'm suicidal. Okay, we take that very seriously. And MHPs will go down and meet with them. They're the only ones that can clear them off their safety watch. Once they make a statement of suicidal ideation, we make sure that we really keep a very close eye on them. And then the MHP will come down and talk to them, and they will decide whether or not they can contract for safety and make sure that they can keep themselves safe while they're in jail. They also provide services like they can coordinate transportation, let's say to a hospital. Let's say somebody says, well, I don't really feel safe going back on the street and I want to go back to Compass Health. And so what they'll do is they can coordinate that. They'll have an ambulance come pick them up. They're actually put them in for voluntary hospitalization for psych, and we'll get them over to the proper resources to get them to where that they need to be and make sure that they're still medically maintained. Community relationships, again, Compass Health, Sunrise Services, and Sunrise Services is a big one. Every once in a while we get somebody, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Sunrise Services. They have a lot of adult family homes, group homes for some of these folks. Every once in a while, you know, we have somebody come from one, they get booked into our jail. We will make sure that when they leave, that they are picked up normally by their counselor. Sunrise Services will come and get them so we can make sure that they get back to where they need to be. Grief counseling, we do that. We've had MHPs have to go down and tell folks, you know, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but someone in your family or someone that you know passed away, blah, 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 and we make sure that we do their mental health after those kind of things, grief counseling, those type things. Make sure that they have what they need, or if they need to express grief, you know, that they have someone there to talk to. This is one of our graduates from our Into Work program. And you can see on the bottom there that they're working. And so they have their hairnets on, they got all their stuff going. You walk down into the kitchen, you say, how's it going, fellas? Good, nurse, we're doing good. They're down there working, and they have that pride, and they are, you know, they really, I guess I can't say the word prideful enough, but they really are. And you see that difference in them. And so we're very proud of that. That's probably one of my favorite pictures right there. And I think that's the end. Any questions?
Questions? Well, I'm just curious, you mentioned you have, I'm astounded that there's like 65 inmates that are going through withdrawal in our jail at any time. What percentage of the average population is, are people who are coming into you with, that are have drugs in their system?
I don't have stats in front of me, but it's a very high percentage.
I think it was about 80%.
Yeah,
I'd say 80, 90%, yeah.
Some type of drug.
mainly fentanyl, over the past few months.
Yeah.
It's been fentanyl.
Yeah. I started working for the jail approximately 5 years ago, and when I first started up in those medical units, it was heroin, 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 alcohol, alcohol, heroin, heroin, heroin. You don't even see heroin anymore. It's all fentanyl. And now they're putting xylazine in it, and so we're very concerned. And so we're going to get test strips. We have them ordered. We have them come in so we can make sure that we know who's on what, and so that we're treating them appropriately.
Right.
The one thing that we're seeing, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that with heroin, it was about a 2 to 3 day withdrawal. We're able to get them into MAP pretty quick, get them back on their feet, allow that clarity, it could make that decision. With fentanyl, it's just a complete game changer for us. And so they're in our medical housing unit much, much, much longer, which creates this overcapacity piece for us. Now, we're able to manage it, but it's not great. But we are, every time in our medical housing, whether it be in our 65 or in our 44 or 48, whatever number you want to use on that, we have a nurse assigned to there, we have a deputy assigned full-time. And so we're constantly monitoring them and how they're detoxing and that. But it's a game changer. Fentanyl has been a game changer for the jail because of the detox issues. The other thing is them trying to bring fentanyl inside of the jail because they want it so badly and the detox is so terrible.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing things like them cramming it under their fingernails for later to try and get out with pencils, putting it under wounds with liquid Band-Aids. So they'll break open a scab, put liquid Band-Aid on, put the fentanyl in the liquid Band-Aid, cover the scab back up, and then put liquid Band-Aid on. So you're really using some unique methods to try and bring it inside the jail. And what's that caused has been overdoses inside of our jail as well. Luckily, we have an indirect, or we have a direct supervision model jail, which a lot of jails don't have, like King County, where we have a deputy assigned to a module and the inmates are out. And so the deputy knows the baseline behavior for those inmates. If it's changes, like somebody that uses fentanyl inside the jail, they can immediately address that or see that change physically and then address that problem. We had one deputy Narcan 4 inmates. We had a total of 7 that overdosed there at the jail, and I think he Narcan and saved 4 lives that night before medical staff could even get in there, just because he saw one person that wasn't within their baseline, how they were acting normally, and ended up finding more because of that. But it's a significant issue for us. We have the state-of-the-art body scanner that we got several years ago. It's better than anything you'll see at the TSA. However, it takes techs to run it, and to make a jailer like me a tech is a little difficult. And so it's repetition about being able to see things that look like bubbles inside of a body but are actually balloons or other kind of material particulates that are inside that don't belong there. So it's very difficult for our people to try and find what they're bringing in right now. So it's a game changer for us. And the 3-day, the thing you brought up about Everett, it's real, because they aren't fully detoxed. We cannot get them into a MAP program because they're not being held long enough inside of our jail to be able to get to that point, like I said before. And so we're releasing them, and I used a term that's street language, but jonesing, or they're craving more fentanyl when they get outside of our jail. So it's an issue. It's an issue for your city, it's an issue for our county, and we have to look at something better than what we're doing when it comes to involuntary commitment for people that are under fentanyl, because they do not have clarity to make good common sense decisions about their lives. So, thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
That's an excellent segue to my next series of questions. Maybe more for our administrative staff. I can't tell if Susie's here or not. I was curious how much the city of Everett pays per night per inmate. What's our contract cost?
Well, we can get that to you. If Susie were here, she would have it, but it's higher for the medical beds and a different amount for the other beds, but we can get right back to you and get that information to you.
Great. So yeah, my concern is that if there are people exiting the jail who don't originate in Everett and they reoffend, then Everett's footing the bill for them to go back through the system that they had just come from. So I'd be curious what the cost is to the city for that policy. And so I'm curious, who is the governing body, or where do the policies originate from that you have to abide by for what the exiting procedures are? Like, where does it say that they just come out to the streets of Everett, or?
I think that's the Constitution, right?
It's the Constitution, yeah, they're free, they're free, and so
Okay.
we can't detain them or
force
hold
them to
them
do
once the
anything.
judge releases them. So that's either they're released in the courtroom, which happens on occasion, or the judge demands that they're released at the jail.
Are there offers for housing or rides back to their?
So if we have them in our
community?
MAP program, we don't release them at 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't do at midnight like we used to do 4 or 5 years ago, when I remember Danny was on me when I was a South Precinct commander, and I was the major of the jail as well. We've changed that. We've tried to make it where they're being released more in the daytime, so they have some social services available to them. So when they have hooked up or made an agreement with our Office of Neighborhoods program, we're trying to get them into Carnegie afterwards and getting them a bed outside with Carnegie. But that's if they've agreed to our Office of Neighborhoods program. If they're in our MAP program, we try to send them out through a warrant handoff to an Ideal Options counselor on the outside the day that they're released. So that doesn't always happen. Sometimes it takes us a day to get an appointment for them and all that, but we are trying to make that as warm a handoff as we can so there's no gap. Because if we find that if there's a gap, we're going to see them again really quickly, or they could die. So that's literally what's happening out in the streets with fentanyl. So,
Appreciate that,
yeah.
thanks.
Councilmember Fosse and then Councilmember Vogely.
What percentage of the folks then are in the MAP program that are being released, or like what number of folks actually are going through that and
I do not know. I'd have to have Ideal Options. They track all of them. We get them through their detox, and then.
Can you speak in the microphone, please?
Medical at the jail, we're going to get them through their detox. Then they're going to go to Ideal Options. Ideal Options, once they leave the jail, medically, we don't track them. because I don't have any way to track them. But Ideal Options may have those numbers. I'm not sure. I'd have to speak to them. As far as your percentage of who and how
follows
many, I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, so you said you try to get them to go to Carnegie, correct? Or you try to get them to accept services? Is that
they'll
the
accept
process for
services.
reentry? I'm trying to figure out how many people are being let go jonesing or let go in the courthouse, or how many people are actually benefiting from some sort of reentry services.
Well, if they're there for 3 or 4 days, they will never benefit from any reentry service because they're leaving the jail still under the influence or detoxing, and they don't have the clarity to make those decisions.
What
So
percentage?
It's a big percentage. I don't know, but the majority of our people are between 3 and 5 days stay. It takes 5 to 7 days to detox. You could probably do the math on that.
It's 10% of our population is released every Monday. Every Monday.
That's
Over the
interesting.
weekend, there's about 10% of our population get released
So he just said every Monday, 10% of your population is released?
Mondays.
Okay. And then the public data that you said is going to be available, does it have a lot of the answers to these questions that we're asking about percentages of people that are going in with a substance use disorder that will have something in one of the UAs or something like that?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
that public data will contain all of that.
So some of it we can't track yet because we don't have the strips to test for it, like xylazine or trank. We have methamphetamine, all that information will be contained in that dashboard when it's flipped open to everybody.
Okay, fantastic.
Yep.
And I just wanted to give you props to your dental program. I don't know that you guys elaborated enough. That was pretty amazing on folks that were coming in when we were checking that out.
So that picture was taken today, by the way. So we have full-service dental. So when you think of a jail and, you know, how it used to be with bread and water and that, you know, and the steel bars and the clanking of that's not how it is anymore. We provide all the services you would expect from a humane facility that is going to provide you with food and with dental, with medical, and things that you will not ever get if you're an addict out in the street, with counseling, with grief counseling, with services, with the opportunity to learn a craft and a skill. That just doesn't happen on the road when you're an addict, but it can happen in the jail if you're there long enough. And so that's the one thing, I don't think we really highlighted that enough, like you said, but that's one thing that we're very proud of. We're as innovative as any jail in the country right now for that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I don't think that gets advertised through the press a lot. So.
Yeah, it was very impressive going through and seeing that. And so kudos on that. And yes, you do have an amazing body scanner. So that was really nice. Along with the direct supervision, I got a clear picture of that. And so I appreciate that model that you're pursuing because that seems a very people-centered approach. I really want data and information, and so you might hear more questions following up from me.
I'll work on the metrics for you, Mary.
Thank
okay?
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I did have one other question with regards to what you had said about the wound care increasing. Can you explain why?
So because xylazine is not meant for human consumption, we're finding that it causes skin breakdown. And with that, I mean, it can be anywhere on the body, and they can be quite terrible, depending on how much they use, depending on how quickly they try to get these wounds and things managed appropriately by medical staff. You'd be surprised at how many people walk around with just terrible wounds on their bodies because they're addicted, because if you smoke fentanyl, you don't feel that anymore, right? And so we'll see them. I've seen wounds down to the bone, unfortunately. And so they're doing more and more studies, but what we're finding with these studies is that the xylazine that's coming out is really the cause of some of the skin breakdown in some of these wounds. They did a story, I can't remember which news did it, but they had nurses on the street trying to teach folks how to take care of these wounds, what it's coming from, and those type things. You'll see certain wounds with like methamphetamine as it tries to work its way out of your body. Those will come with wounds, but nothing like the xylazine that's upcoming and that we're going to start seeing.
Thank you.
You're
That's very helpful.
Along
Yes.
with the wounds, part of the reason why they're using, why you would ask yourself, why would anybody use xylazine? Why would anybody use tranq? It's because detox is so bad with fentanyl, and it prolongs their high and prolongs them from going into a detox stage before they get into detox. So you can imagine how bad detox is when somebody's willing to take a synthetic drug from the East Coast that's going to eat your skin from the bone out and have these tremendous, terrible looking and eventually life-threatening wounds that they have on their body from mixing both fentanyl and tranq or xylazine. So we saw it with meth. It's at a whole new level with xylazine, whole new level.
Wow, okay. And the last thing, I won't let you have to deep dive into this now, but I had a lot of questions on the reentry side of things, what that looked like as a person going through it. If you guys could provide, even offline, more of a better picture of what that looks like for folks and how, this group of folks, this is what they go through, this is where they exit, this is, what that kind of looks like on the ground. That would be really, really helpful for me to get a better picture of kind of what we're looking at and where we might be able to help.
Councilmember Vogely.
But my office is always open. If you want to come down and we can sit down and you can watch, and go through the metrics. If you'd like that, come on over. We set an appointment with me.
I would be glad to visit you
Perfect.
again.
Awesome. A lot of things have already been said and answered, but the xylazine, is it the same as tranq? And does it show up in a urine test, or do you just know? Because
So-
you test everybody.
We do
but-
test everybody. Right now, we don't have the capabilities of testing for xylazine, but those strips are on order, so that will be added to what we're seeing. We have had one confirmed case of fentanyl mixed with xylazine from one of our folks that OD'd. As we got him to the hospital, he lived, so that was good news. But that was the first time that we had seen it here. We knew that it was coming from the East Coast. It's going to be a hard one because there is no antidote to it, and so it's going to be a tough one. I talked to some of your folks that come in, they're very open about why they do certain things, and I said, why would you take this one? He said, because it's dangerous. I said, okay.
Also wanted to give kudos on the direct supervision rather than cameras being watched occasionally. And what award did the sheriff's office / jail get recently?
Well, we just passed accreditation for
That's the
100%,
one.
so.
That's the
yeah.
one.
And we're the only large jail in the state of Washington that's accredited.
That's
Because of that.
what I wanted people to hear. Okay, and so back to wound care and your skin breaks down. Is it the same thing as when people are injecting heroin, they're getting a on-site flesh-eating thing as well, or is this different?
This is different.
Right.
There was, a few years ago, there was a drug called crocodile tears, that's what they called it, because it would turn your skin to scale, and then your skin would start to slough off down to the bone. That was a codeine-based drug. Xylazine, like I said, not meant for human consumption, so unfortunately, the skin breakdown that we're seeing is attributed to that specific drug, and it's not gonna be nice. So, as much education as we can do over there, letting them know, to stay away from this one, stay away from this one, stay away from this one, is the counseling that we can give them and the education that we can give them. And yet you have those that are like, nope, that's the one I want, because unfortunately, with addiction, what happens is you start out at this level, and then that's not enough. Now you go to this level, and then that's not enough, and now you go to this level. You'll see guys that come in and you say, okay, how many fentanyl pills do you use in a day? 40 to 50. And I'm also using 3 to 4 grams of pure fentanyl powder a day. A day. That would kill all of us in this room. And these guys, their addiction is so high that that's what the level that they're up to. And that's why their addiction is so bad, and that's why their detox is so hard.
And more about the drugs, sorry,
Okay.
not sorry. So there are drugs that people are using that are laced with fentanyl. And now there's fentanyl that people are using that are
Laced with
laced with
xylazine. Yes.
xylazine. And does anybody really know anymore what they're smoking or injecting? Unless it's but even if you have the actual blue, right?
Right. You don't know what the additives that they put in that blue was, exactly. So no, they don't actually know. And then some of them do, and some of them actually go out and look for specific types of drugs. And that's why some of them will go out and actually try to find the pure fentanyl powder rather than the pill, because it's stronger for them and they get a better high from it. Because the pill simply doesn't do it for them anymore.
Okay, well, maybe we can get some test strips that are just readily available in the community in a free, like, tampon applicator thing, but not a tampon.
And the other thing too, let me just elaborate real quick. You have some folks that, when we first started seeing fentanyl, you would tell them, hey, there's fentanyl in your system. And they were shocked. And then pretty soon, they're like, oh yeah, fentanyl's in everything now. It's just in everything now. It doesn't bother them anymore because they're used to it. And then they transitioned off of heroin onto fentanyl. And so, like I said, you just don't see much heroin anymore. What you're seeing is fentanyl. And then the trank drug, trank is a street name for the xylazine mixed with fentanyl, to answer that question.
Right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I mean, right, thank you.
A question I have is, it sounds like what we need is more time with these people. And is there any hope, I mean, I'm probably going to answer my own question, is there any hope of getting some kind of involuntary commitment extension so that we can have at least a chance of getting some of them detoxed and on the Suboxone and maybe thinking a little bit more lucidly?
Don't know that I can answer that tonight. I don't know if there is hope in that area or not. I know there is a push. I've talked to the elected prosecutor, Jason Cummings, and I know for a fact I've heard him say it. He would support something like that, but that is a state level change that would have to happen in Olympia. And I think while the police do have authority to take somebody off the streets against their will, it's a very high threshold. And I think we need to involve more physicians and services with that. And I don't know that we have that in place to be able to handle the volume that would happen if we did that. That is absolutely where the state of Washington needs to go, though.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds like it. Councilmember Vogely.
Or you guys are doing such a bang-up job at the services, and I'm not joking, because it is amazing. You have the beds. You have the caring and empathetic staff. And you have people being picked up on soda charges or just drug-related charges. There's definitely some murder and some rape and some assault and battery and some drive-by shootings, but a lot of it is just drugs. So we don't necessarily need people in jail for criminal offenses of drugs, but we could have people in an institution for the amount of time with your kind of care with already the beds. You know, we could work towards that as well, like, as in drugs aren't necessarily a crime because, like I've said before, I know it's a crime on the books right now. I'm not denying that, but I think it shouldn't be a crime because it is a mental health issue. So, do I think that we need 7 days jail stay? Well, to get people off drugs, I think that'd be great. As a criminal offense, no.
So I tend to agree with what you just said. Maybe not every single word, but I do agree with most of it. And I think that's probably the direction where we're going, where we talked about involuntary care. That's where we really need help. But if there is another facility out there where those that are addicted to substances can go, other than the Snohomish County Jail, you can sign me up as the Snohomish County Sheriff right now today. It is a heavy lift for these folks to do every day. I don't know the number of we call them saves when people overdose in our care and we're able to save their lives, but it was 7 in one night and there has been several after that, and they get all the credit for that. It is a difficult job to run a large jail in the state of Washington in 2023, but I think these guys are doing fantastic work. But yes, I tend to agree with you. And if we can be part of that solution, because let's be honest, that facility that we're talking about that doesn't exist right now, it's not going to happen overnight. Government tends to run slowly.
It's right here downtown.
If you're talking about the jail, it could be, and I'm open to it. The next kind of step of this evolution for us, we're not there yet, so I want to be clear about that, is starting a recovery model inside of our jail. But again, that requires, there's courts involvement, there's defense attorneys, there's prosecutors involved in that as well. So it's a heavy lift, but we're looking at that very seriously in the very near future.
Thank you. Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you, Sheriff Fortney. I had a chance to tour the jail before and also had toured Denny Youth Center and was really impressed with the work that Pioneer Human Services is doing over at Denny, also owned and operated by Snohomish County. And the Denny Youth, as I'm sure you know, was built with a certain census in mind for youth convicted of crimes. However, it's never actualized that full census, and there's wings that are available for spaces like that. And so touring it and the great work that Pioneer Human Services is doing, I was picturing how great it would be for some of those entire wings to be transformed into detox centers and recovery centers and whatnot. So I think the answer is here in Snohomish County, to be honest. Thank you.
I can tell you, I agree with everything you just said, and I wish we could get there. This is the key. That not people in this room, but most people miss, is we cannot hold people against their will in the United States of America because they're addicted to substances. We cannot do it. That is the change that needs to happen. I'm proud of Snohomish County and all of the that includes the city of Everett, for all the resources that we do have available for people who are willing, who will raise their hand and say, yeah, I want to change my life. I believe we have avenues to help those people in Snohomish County. It may not be perfect, but I think it's run really, really well. Where we have to come to this as a society is what are we going to do with those folks who, as you've already heard up here from the subject matter experts, they are not of the right mindset to be able to raise their hand and say, I want help. They just aren't. They're not. These guys see it every day. Our patrol side of the house see it on the streets. They cannot. They are not doing it. Even, throughout history, we have seen that work every so often. Like they said, fentanyl's a game changer. We're not seeing that right now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Sheriff Fortney and Bureau Chief Robertson, Major Downing, and Amanda, thank you very much for coming tonight. Such an interesting presentation. I'm very proud to be part of Snohomish County as well, and I'm glad to hear of all the great work you have going on over at Snohomish County Jail. I'm heartened by the work that you're doing, but so sad that we have so many people in our community suffering in the way they do. But I'm thankful that you're taking care of them, so thank you very much for being here tonight. Any final questions? Thank you. Oh, well, with that, we are going to move on to public comment. Angie, do we have anyone signed up to speak this evening?
Good evening, President Stonecipher. We do. We have individuals in chambers all wishing to wait till we get to item 8 on the agenda. We have a few individuals online. We did receive some written comments, so I'll just go over those. Kristen Hall regarding port compatibility area, and then the remaining ones are in relation to item 8, David Koenig, Mary Cunningham, and WS. Jeff Storer. So I'll start with online. If Brock could please unmute yourself, turn on your video, there we go, and please state your full name, city of residence, as soon as you see the timer on the screen.
Brock Howell, Executive Director of Everett Station District Alliance and Snohomish County Transportation Coalition. Here to comment mostly on the housing alternatives, and just real quick statement of support above the range of alternatives that I put forth, which I think give you a good range to evaluate housing choice moving forward. So I look forward to the results. In the analysis, which isn't really part of the alternatives that you're picking from today, but I just want to make sure that you're paying attention to it, is a few layers. Not only is there enough housing for individuals, but we have the right housing for the range of incomes that are needed. So under House Bill 1220, there's a requirement for doing the analysis of sufficient housing for each level of income. So be mindful of that, as well as the housing type of home ownership versus renting. That's a really key component for making sure that families can live within the city. The other key analysis is regarding PSRC's Vision 2050 policy, Regional Growth Strategy number 8, which requires or targets 65% of residential growth near high-capacity transit stations. Everett can be a leader in doing this analysis, making sure that we are reaching that goal of having more people being within a walking distance of light rail, eventually, Sounder commuter train, and bus rapid transit with the Swift blue and gold lines, as well as the eventual silver line. So I encourage you to encourage the staff to do that analysis and to scope that within whatever contract you have with the consultant for this project. With that, thank you for your time. I think I liked Everett Transit's TDP for the most part. No qualms there. Good annual update. I know there's a lot of other things that are happening that will impact the agency moving forward. So, I think those decisions will have probably bigger ramifications. TDP looks like very good analysis. That charts a 6-year course. So, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Brock. Next, if Willie could please unmute, turn on video if possible. And you have 3 minutes to speak. Just state your full name and city of residence.
My name is Willie Russell. I don't live in the city of Everett. I came tonight to talk about something else, but the sheriff showed up and, I'm really amazed. I'm amazed because everything that they've talked about tonight was discussed in the 80s. The only thing that's changed is the name. Fentanyl. Back then it was cocaine. If you don't believe me, listen to the council tapes of the 80s. We had those people back there talking about involuntary commitment. Telling you citizens, you better pay attention to what this sheriff and these council members are doing. Involuntary commitment. Now notice how the nurse from the sheriff's office talked about, if they need to be taken to the hospital upon release, they'll take them to the hospital. Yeah, they get them involuntarily committed there, and the hospital sometimes won't accept them or they release them in 24 hours. What happens then? DSHS goes out and gets a voucher and takes them to the Waits Motel. That's right. They take them to the Waits Motel, the place that you want to close down, who's doing the only thing that needs to be done in this community. Where's the sheriff or your local police down there helping this lady? You know what? Your police department has brought people to the Waits Motel and then had to come back and get them out. There are police reports. The sheriff talks about all these wonderful programs he's got in the jail. Yes, he does. But the one program he doesn't have? A law library. That's right. You can't go to the law library in the jail that stand up for your rights. You got to wait for a public defender who's paid by the county to keep him in jail. And now we've got council members talking about involuntary commitment. Well, guess what? They told me that bugger off means if I tell somebody bugger off that I want anal sex, and they've tried to charge me, could I get involuntary commitment for that? Yeah. You citizens better pay attention to what in the hell is going on in your community. You've got Brenda Stonecipher, you just said what you were. You want people locked up. You don't care about them. I think if you commit a crime, I don't care if you're on drugs or not. Do the time. Move on. And everybody shut your mouth and move on with your own business. Let these people do what they want to do. If they want to die, let them die. They're tired of government. And we're tired of paying for stupid government. I want to thank you for your time, and we're going to continue to support the Waits Motel.
Emily, if you could please unmute yourself and state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, my name's Emily, and I live in the notorious Waits Motel. Can you see me?
Yes.
Am I on?
Yes, we can. Yep.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to come and talk about, I'm worried for Gen X, I'm worried for Gen Z, because I believe that the city, you're messing with the free market, and it scares me, because if it's at the local level, then it's pretty dangerous, probably going up from state and federal. I know that you guys know about abatement, and I'm I just predict you're not going to bulldoze this place. You're going to use media to make it look like you're doing a big favor for the environment. And there has been no housing specialist out here. Also, my husband and I, we made a YouTube video about what we did 8 weeks before you went to condemn. And I'm thinking maybe it stepped on some toes. And you guys, you had a chance to actually put actions behind your words when it comes to Native Americans. You have to put them in a place of equity. And then timeline and facts that I think I didn't bring up until now was you made an offer that got rejected. There was on May 19th. So March, you did your appraisal. May 19th, your offer was rejected for being too low. You came in at like 1.3 when there was already offers on the table for 1.7, 1.8 and up. And then July 6th, after you were rejected, that's when you made the move to condemn, which I know the mayor knows because her name is on the initial offer that was made. So when you didn't get it, you waited a month and decided to strategize to condemn. And I'm curious if KRB Concepts is behind it. Yeah, I was so transparent with all these, and I'm the one who reported the rooms. I'm the one who reported them to the police. So even though you acknowledge the Shahokes people, it's still all First Nations, and we were here. And if you notice the people for and against this whole thing, the one side that's for it was all white homeowners. The ones that were against condemning it, huge variety of age, income, and background. So yeah, lastly, I think you should go visit Colors of Hawaii. It's a native-run store. And yeah, I'm sorry that you guys are spending a lot of money on Foster Gravy Legal to go through with your land acquisition, and I think it's really messed up, and I'm worried for the future generations if this is how the local government is running itself. No, that's all. I just wanted to bring it to light so you guys had the timeline. Offer made, rejected, condemn. Not cool, not okay. So yeah, visit Colors of Hawaii.
Thank you, Emily. Joe, just to confirm, you wish to wait till we get to item 7, is that right?
I have some general comments as well. I can work them into item 7 if need be, up to you.
Okay, you can speak now. Yep, go ahead.
All right, thanks. Really good presentation about the jail. I didn't know just how much of the jail has had to become an involuntary treatment center. I second all of Emily Simpson's and Brock Howell's comments. But back to the jail. Even though the jail was marketed tonight as more of a treatment center, I'm an impulsive person myself. I'm the kind of person where, the one thing that keeps me from going full throttle anger sometimes is just the deterrence of jail and arrest record and all the penalties that come with that. Like you can lose your license, you get a felony, you lose your licenses. So, I still think there's value in marketing jail as a deterrent to crime to impulsive people, and those people do exist, and I'm one of them. On another matter, before we get to public transit, I really think that maybe it's time that Everett started reaching out to Seafair and saying it's time to bring the Blue Angels up here, because there's a lot of complaining down there. But I've got about 2 minutes left, and I kind of discussed my transit concerns. As you know, most of you know, I take transit to go anywhere. I'm a huge supporter of transit. I love your electric buses. As you can see behind me, that's my photo. But long-term, Everett Transit needs more financial assistance. When I ride Everett Transit, the system looks incredibly under-resourced and underappreciated with a very good, strong culture. I'm wondering if the reports are true that the negotiations are stuck with community transit, that maybe it's time Everett Transit made an offer and took a page from Horizon Air and how Horizon Air operates under Alaska Airlines. And I'm going to check with Alaska Airlines, make sure my understanding is correct, and email you all back. But my understanding is Horizon Air operates with a services purchase agreement from Alaska Airlines, and they still retain some of their branding and identity. And it would be nice if Everett Transit retained its branding identity and unique culture, as long as it meets certain benchmarks for service and performance standards, which I'm confident that the people of Everett Transit can meet. So I'm throwing it out there to try to get a merger done, because I do think Everett Transit needs the 1.2 sales tax rate. With about 30 seconds left, in case I'm not called on for the transit development plan, I really hope you're able to secure spare parts for the Proterra buses. They are absolutely incredible, and keep buying Gillig electric buses. We do need more battery electric buses out there to reduce emissions. Thank you for your public service, and it is much appreciated by me. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. President Stonesife, for the remaining are for item 8 in chambers.
Very good, thank you. We will move on to council comments and liaison reports, starting with Councilmember Ryan.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for the great conversation so far. I appreciate it. Earlier this week, I attended the Faith Family Village groundbreaking event for the pallet shelters that are going to be going in there, and it was a very exciting and long-awaited event, and it was great to see folks from Faith Family Village and the community coming together to celebrate the 8 units that are going in there for families. There'll be 2 additional units, one for hygiene and one for laundry services, and there's also the food bank on site and services and the church community itself too. So just really excited to head to the ribbon cutting in a few months or so, or when it's all wrapped up. So just appreciate the hard work that the city's put in to work on the site, and the federal funding, the county funding from our ARPA dollars, and just it's a great example of a community really coming together to support itself. So great work for everybody. Tonight I have a letter that had been drafted in support of our nurses at Providence Medical Center. They are currently in contract negotiations with administration, and so the letter is words of support for our nursing community, and also just for our Everett community as a whole, recognizing that the strength of our hospital is imperative to providing medical services to our community and for people in need. So just wanted to thank my colleagues who had signed on. I already got signatures from Councilmember Fossey and Councilmember Vogely, and Councilmember Schwab shared that he would like to sign it as well. So if we could do some ink signatures from Vice President Toohey and President Stonesifer, and then thank you to Angie for helping to facilitate all those signatures as well, and just wish the best for our nurses and our hospital. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fossey.
Thank you, and thank you to Councilmember Ryan for heading that up. I appreciate it very much, and for your wonderful description of the groundbreaking ceremony at the Faith Family Village. I was also able to attend that, and it really is nice to see a collaboration of so many entities coming together to make that possible for our families and our neighbors that really need it. I wanted to also say welcome again to our 2 new officers. That's very exciting. As for recent events, other than the groundbreaking, I was able to attend our Union Solidarity Aqua Sox night, which was a lot of fun recently amongst my meetings. And I wanted to give everybody a save the date for September 16th. The Delta Art Experience will be going on at Jackson Park. More information to come, but make sure to save that date because that's going to be a fun one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, I also want to acknowledge the I certainly support the nurses in their work for adequate staffing and recognize the critical importance of Providence for our community here, and of course their effort to get good working conditions. I know they're in contract negotiations right now and that a substantial pay raise has been offered, but there is negotiation also around staffing levels, and I know contract negotiations are contentious and multifaceted. And I have to say that I am reluctant to insert myself in this process, which is the reason I'm not signing that letter. It doesn't reflect any lack of support for the hospital or for our community or for the nurses or for the staffing that I know they need. But I also don't want to interfere in that process in something that I don't yet know enough about. I know the letter came out midday yesterday, but in my work on the comprehensive plan, I've not been able to dig into that enough to satisfy myself that I would be a positive force that way. And a quick note, I attended a couple of days ago the official opening of the new playground at Thornton Sullivan Silver Lake Park. I was gratified to see that it was as busy as it had been since minutes after the fences came down after the rework several weeks ago. That park had been well used, very well used for 25 years, something beyond its normal life expectancy. And the new one really supports a wider range of abilities and ages. It's more accessible, more welcoming, should be safer. And I've noticed from wandering around there, it's used at all hours well into the darkness, even lines for the zip lines that way. And also walking through a recent evening, a lot of our community members don't have money to spend on things that cost in terms of recreational activities. And so Parks offers a really great value that way. And walking through in a recent evening, I heard at least 5 different languages walking through in about 10 minutes through the park. Lots of use by lots of community members. So I want to thank park staff, administration, and also especially for making the maximum use of recreational hours per dollar, where the city has to watch its dollars really carefully. And then lastly, I hope we can be as good stewards and as good visionaries as our city fathers were some 101 years ago when that park was first opened, some 103 or so years ago when that property was first purchased, when that property was some 5 or 6 miles south of the city limits. So I hope we have that kind of vision. I'm happy to see this kind of thing be something for a whole bunch of our community members, not only in that neighborhood, but in that whole, that real regional area.
President Stonecipher, I just want to jump in. I have to share a very cute anecdote from that park opening. Our ribbon cutting ceremonies were interrupted by probably a 4-year-old child who came right up and said, "Thank you for building a park for us." And so it was just really precious, and people, of course, tried to capture it on film, so you'll probably see that in a video somewhere. But just, we have the gratitude of a 4.5-year-old for that new playground, so there you go.
Yeah, if you look at the Parks Department's Facebook page, there is a video of that. There are some pictures also on the city's page. But the Parks Department Facebook page has that, and behind that girl, you can see a whole bunch of others from 2 or 3 years old on up through 4 and up, just making great use of that. And it happens every day, all day, well into the night. So again, thank you for making this happen.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
Good evening, everybody. So I've been doing a lot of research, and I'm not going to go completely into it, but I also have a timeline of events regarding the Waits Motel, and I'm not going to read them all. I'm not even going to read one, but I do believe that there's something that needs to be discussed, and we may even need to have an executive session about it. And I haven't even spoken with Emily Simpson about her ideas, but there's a timeline issue that I am bringing up for the better or worse.
Well, I'll have to review the information, and we can talk to legal counsel to see if that is something worthy of an executive session, or whether we just have to have that conversation right here on the dais. Is that all?
Oh, yeah, that is all.
Thank you. Vice President Dewey.
Yeah, just real quickly, this evening, we had our Safe Community Committee meeting, and we had 2 presentations, one on our noise regulation. Megan Monroe, the staff, walked us through our regulations, and we will be seeing a rewrite. They're working on that, so within about 6 months, we'll see that back at council, so we can all dig into that. And then the chief gave us a great update on our police matrix study that we had done, and the work that they're doing, and how they've divided up the tasks, and how they're progressing through those. So that was a great update, and very informative. So that's all.
Thank you. I don't have any comments or reports. Do we have an administrative update this evening?
Yes, just 2 items. One, a reminder to council that we will all start at 5 p.m. next week for budget committee. And then there's an individual that's come to your meetings a couple times with questions about new bike facilities and then also some school related concerns. And I just wanted to make sure that you knew that Public Works staff have connected with them on bike facilities and answered questions. And our EPD staff are working to schedule with their consent, I guess, to schedule a meeting with school staff and their family to talk about those concerns. Yeah.
Thank you. And now we'll go to our Deputy City Attorney, Mr. Rammerman. What do you have for us this evening?
No comments, but we are asking for an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230 110 sub I to discuss a legal matter with possible action to follow to last for 5 minutes.
Thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the 5 consent items?
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments? Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes. And next, we have a proposed action item. It's a first reading, so I'll read it into the record. Item 6 is Council Bill 2308-40. It's first reading. Adopt an ordinance creating a special improvement project entitled PGSF WMVD Storm and Combined Sewer Improvements. Fund 336, Program 037. The third and final reading for this will be on September 6th. Any questions on the proposed action item?
Oh, yes.
6.
Yes. Yes, I do have one.
Thank you.
This is coming in at 4.5 million for design phase funding, and I'm just wondering if, even though we don't have the, my mind is on something else right now. Wondering if, yes, thank you. Even though we don't have a PLA agreement, I'm just wondering if it's on the radar, looking for, I know it's under 5 million, but we don't have an agreement anyways. Yeah, that's my question. Is it on the radar for PLA possibilities?
I see Ryan Sass coming.
Good. I was like, am I tapped for this? But I'm glad that Director Sass is here.
Good evening, Ryan Sass with Public Works. Yeah, this project is part of the overall PGSF combined sewer overflow project that we're working on. That's well over 100 million in total cost and multiple projects. Each project will be assessed. This project's a long time from design and bidding, so it's certainly on our horizon to look at. It's not one we're looking at currently. Currently, the one project that we are looking at with regard to a PLA is the Reservoir 3 replacement.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilmember Fosse.
With regards to that, I remember earlier this year, I had requested for the results of the assessment for the municipal building, and I heard that you guys were going to come back and provide the reason why, an explanation of why that was not assessed as needing or wanting a PLA.
Yeah, that's a Parks and Facilities project, and they did have a paid consultant do an analysis, and I believe that analysis is available. But I know that Parks and Facilities can certainly provide it.
Great. Any other questions on item 6? Okay, we'll move on to our public hearings. So we have 2 public hearing items this evening. Item number 7 is the 2023 to 2028 Everett Transit Development Plan and 2022 Annual Report. And I will now open the public hearing. I believe we have our Transportation Services Manager here to brief us, Melinda Adams. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. Melinda Adams, Transportation Services Manager for Everett Transit. The TDP is a mandated annual report. Information from the report is used by the legislature in their deliberations on the state of public transportation. It lists activities and accomplishments in the previous year and forecasts plans for the following 6 years to provide guidance for other plans. Although there are budgetary elements in the plan, it is not a budget document. This presentation is a summary of the more detailed document in your packet and posted on Everett Transit's website. While this document is not a service plan, it foreshadows what future service plans may look like. The TDP was presented to the Transportation Advisory Committee on July 18th and August 17th. This is a public hearing only and does not require council action. We'll start out with reviewing activities in 2022. Everett Transit arrivals, which is comprised of both text messages received as well as phone calls received, reflected an overall 19% increase from 2021. Commute trip reduction in 2022 showed improving individual worksite participation, distributed updates and information about local and regional transit impacts and infrastructure, biking infrastructure, and safe travel. Quarterly newsletters provided regional and federal regulation changes and environmental impact news. And Bike Everywhere Day was very successful and showed a large uptick in participation over the previous years. Disadvantaged enterprise goals were set at an annual rate of 2%. We created a video for the website to explain and engage with potential DBEs and understanding of the process. Title VI training was provided to staff. Comprehensive training on the Title VI program was provided to 2 service planning staff and 4 administrative staff. Customer service staff were provided training on ET's language assistance program. Federal pandemic relief funding was used for transportation employees' salaries and benefits. An additional state operating grant from the Move Ahead Washington in the amount of $1 million was acquired. In our ORCA program, the Next Generation ORCA project, the completion of final design was completed and implementation of the program. The ORCA system training was completed with our customer service staff during that implementation. For our facilities, preventive maintenance for Everett Transit Operations Base and Maintenance Facility included an operations roof coating, Transit Operations Base and Maintenance arc flash assessment, Everett Station's exterior LED lighting upgrade, Everett Station's bus shelter, and wire mesh installation. For fixed route operations, we began to rebound to post-pandemic levels. We saw an increase in the following areas. Our passenger trips showed a 32% increase from 2021. Fixed route expenditures saw a 17% increase, and of course, fuel consumed was at 14%. That was attributed to the increase in service levels that we've been able to provide. For paratransit operations, we also saw an increase here that was quite considerable at 24%. Our expenditures increased as well at 14%, and fuel consumed at 19%. Everett Station operations reflected a 19% increase in revenue from 2021, and operating expenses showed a 4% decrease over 2021. Although we show a slight decrease in expenses, Everett Station continues to have a high cost of operation that cannot be covered by rent lease alone. Budget actuals show a total operating revenue of $42.5 million, total expenses of $30.9 million, leaving a $5 million operations reserve to help sustain service. Under our capital program, total revenue reflected $5.6 million with total expenditures of $1.2 million.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yes.
That sounds like it deserves a woot woot. That's all.
Thank you. We'll take that. Let's see. For our projects and our fleets, so this is looking forward from 2024 through 2028. For our paratransit fleet, over a 5-year span, Everett Transit will focus on the replacement of approximately 25 paratransit vehicles. Everett Transit is monitoring the electrification of paratransit vehicles carefully and will likely use local dollars to purchase 1 to 2 vehicles while technology progresses to a stable level and to evaluate the feasibility of electrifying the paratransit fleet. For projects in service, new service implementation and efficiency updates come in part due to the recently adopted Move Ahead Washington legislation. The bill awards Everett Transit approximately $2.1 million per year until 2038. The funding provided by this bill allows Everett Transit to focus on updating routes and system efficiency improvements. Additional service improvements include 2023, we saw service growth between 5 to 10%. This growth includes the restoration of all high school and middle schools previously served, implements income-eligible subsidized annual pass. 2024 through 2025, we will focus on adjustments for optimal service delivery. And in 2026, we look towards a microtransit pilot program that will be contingent upon grant funding. This new program will be implemented to evaluate the feasibility of using shuttles for service delivery. Microtransit is often used as connector pieces to a longer running route. 27 and 28 will continue to improve frequency on highest ridership routes. For Everett Station, projects will focus on safety updates over the next several years, with ADA accessibility being among the main improvements. Everett Station will begin the introduction of electronic wayfinding. This technology component will aid visitors to Everett Station in finding their destination and departure times with ease. It's worthwhile to note that many of these projects will span several months and at times into the following year. 2023, we will focus on the elevator rehab project. Great Hall Improvement Project will include, updates to lighting, benches, common areas, and ADA enhancements. Installation of the ADA enhancements include wheelchair charging stations. Upgrade of camera systems at all of our Everett Transit facilities. 2024 will focus on fire alarm control panel upgrades, implementation of electronic wayfinding signage at college and mall stations, and replacement of Everett Station's HVAC system. 2025 will focus on repairing and replacing granite walkways at Everett Station and repairing cracks in sections that have lifted. 2026, we will begin our vehicle maintenance shop replacement, subject to awarded grant funding, an Everett Station PA system upgrade, and shelter replacements and bus stop enhancements. Lastly, in 2028, lighting upgrades for the Great Hall and Conference Center and shelter replacements at College Station.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
The HVAC upgrade, did you
Yes.
already source funding for that?
Yes, we have. We are using our annual formula funding from the FTA, from the Federal Transit Administration, towards that project.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. In our operations-based projects, 2023 through 2025 include the expansion of inductive charging throughout Everett Transit's network, the introduction of inductive charging to Everett Transit's infrastructure will change the way public transportation is operated in Everett. Inductive charging allows buses the ability to stay on the streets from the first run of the day to the last run of the night. Everett Transit is working to introduce inductive charging to its infrastructure and then expand the number of inductive chargers. Additional projects include the relocation of the Everett Mall Station with the mall developer, replacement of maintenance facility at the operations base, camera and security upgrades at all Everett Transit facilities. Updates for the years 2025 through 2027 will bring several passenger amenity updates. Everett Transit facilities and maintenance staff will update or replace necessary shelter components. Immediate focus will be placed on the replacement of broken or missing shelter glass with a sturdy, cleaner wire mesh. This change will be implemented throughout the city to create a cohesive and maintainable image. Everett Transit's financial picture looks bright. This is made possible by an infusion of the pandemic federal funding support, including the Move Ahead Washington funding. A portion of these funds can be used for transformative projects.
A quick question before we
Certainly.
get too far ahead. The relocation of the Everett Mall station, I guess you're probably working with Brixton Capital, the owners, and will that new station be in or near the mall again, just in a different spot?
Yes, I believe Tom may want to speak to this, but I know they're in talks now about moving the current location of our shelters and so forth to another spot.
Okay, thanks.
And on this graph, are we looking at the fund balance? Is this revenue? What are we looking at here?
Tom? We'll let him come up here and address.
Thank you.
You thought you were going to get away with not talking to me tonight. Yes, that is the estimated fund balance.
Okay, thank you.
I should have been able to say that, but that's okay.
I assumed, but I wasn't sure.
So we will be taking public comment through August 31st. You can reach me at that email address, and I'm happy to take any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Melinda?
Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. I did not ask this ahead of time, so I do not expect you to have the answer.
Okay.
But the slide mentioned that the expenditures for paratransit were around $3.5 million. What's the fare recovery on that $3.5 million?
That is a really good question. I can hear Tom coming up.
It is hardly measurable.
And then what are the administrative costs to recover the hardly measurable fares?
Well, so paratransit is still collecting fares through pre-sold tickets and cash. And so our administrative costs are not really high because it's a fairly small market. We create the tickets in-house, we send them out to a printer. I mean, it's not a real big deal. We have one staff person who handles all fare activity, and this is just part of what she does. So it's not a very big piece of her work. As far as what was noted there, I think, is that paratransit is going to become part of the ORCA system. And so people will be able to use an ORCA card to pay on paratransit. So that'll be a benefit to our customers. And then, in reality, when that happens, the cost of fare collection for paratransit will go up higher than it is today. So if you want me to give you a really detailed breakdown on the percentage of that, I could get that for you at a later time. But
Oh, no, that's not necessary. I was more just trying to prove a point that I think that paratransit should be free. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I guess the paratransit fare is the same as the base fare, the $2 base fare. Do I remember? Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on this item, Angie?
President Stonecipher, I see Joe online wanted to add more.
Sure.
Okay.
We will allow that.
Thank you. Joe Kunstler here about the Transit Development Plan and your discussion. I don't take paratransit, but I am well aware. I was on a Citizens Advisory Committee before and during the pandemic, and the heaviest issue we had to deal with was not addressing the pandemic, it was addressing paratransit fares. And we decided to recommend paratransit fares to Gadget Transit because when it was free, people were just calling and calling and calling the paratransit, treating it like it was a personal taxi. It got to a point to where it started eating into fixed resources and becoming incredible and financially unsustainable. Even though the fare is, I admit, a regressive tax, it's one of the products of Tim Imanomics that obviously I don't particularly like. You know, the fare does kind of contain some of the demand to what's really appropriate and necessary. You really don't want your paratransits, when they charge X amount of dollars per trip higher than fixed route, to become, you know, a free taxi. And I think that regardless of what you decide to do with merging with community transit, you're going to have that same problem. And I can assure you right now, having watched instead of watching Republican debates, I watch transit meetings, and I can assure you that the board members of community transit would scowl at the thought of paratransit being free, and I'm sure most transit board members across the state would be. I have about a minute left, and although I addressed this before, I want to spend a bit more time talking about it. Recently, Proterra declared bankruptcy, and as someone who loves your electric buses, who rides transit, that is of concern to me, because I would hope that part of any bankruptcy thing is that there are ample spare parts for the life of the buses that Proterra has created, because without those spare parts, buses end up becoming parts donors or worse. And you do need ample buses on the road to provide a zero-emission transportation alternative for everyone, and that should be your focus. And that is a concern. I'm happy you're going with Gillig. I know Scattered Transit's going with Gillig. I know Pierce Transit's gone with Gillig. I rode those buses last month. They're incredible buses. Highly recommend. And with 15 seconds left to go, thank you for letting me speak. I do hope you merge with community transit somehow, preferably via some kind of agreement that protects both agencies. Thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Joe. And President Stonecipher, that's all we have for this public hearing.
That's great. And do we have any questions or comments before we close the public hearing? I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan. I'm sorry, quick question. They said the public comments open through 8:31, so it's okay that we're voting to close public comment?
I will ask.
This is just your public hearing, so
Okay.
comments can still be submitted
Okay, great.
to Everett Transit.
Then yes, thank you.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes?
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes. And I don't believe we need to take action on this. We're required to hold a public hearing. Great, thank you. We will move on to our second public hearing, item 8. Adopt a resolution of the City of Everett advancing the 2044 Comprehensive Plan periodic update draft growth alternatives and certain specific amendment requests to be studied in an environmental impact statement. And I will now open the public hearing, and we have Yorick Stevens-Wadja here to help us, and I see Becky is here as well.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll kick us off a little bit while
Thank
Becky's
you.
getting settled. I'm Yorick Stevens-Wadja, the Planning Director. Good evening, Council. Following up on briefings to the Council on August 8th, we're here today to hear from the public and then ask for Council consideration of the proposed resolution in your packets under item 8, which would authorize staff to study 3 growth alternatives in an environmental review process, along with a set of specific amendment requests that we have received from members of the public. The current plan's extended alternative represents an extension of the current comprehensive plan, along with limited changes to address our apparent capacity shortfall for the 2035 planning horizon. The concentrated growth alternative adds sufficient development capacity to accommodate our 2044 growth targets with a pattern that's heavily dependent on high-rise development in Metro Everett and along our major arterial corridors. The dispersed growth alternative also adds sufficient capacity for our 2044 targets with a pattern that leans more on middle housing types, more dispersed throughout neighborhoods in the city, along with low-rise development along a set of smaller arterials dubbed connectors. The proposed resolution also recognizes that the Clark Ramada, Marston Glavas, and Mai's specific amendment requests will be studied in the environmental impact statement under one or both growth alternatives. Recommends addressing the Everett Housing Authority application as part of the pending Park District Development Review process. Recommends advancing the Koenig application into the periodic update for staff and council consideration as comments into the record. And recommends advancing the Cunningham, Hall et al., and Port of Everett requests for further analysis and consideration in the periodic update process. Quick note on the Hall et al. Application. We are, as staff, working with both the applicants and the Port of Everett to try to come to a consensus or a compromise position that is in between approval and not approval. Those conversations are ongoing. We hope that those bear fruit, but the staff recommendation is to advance this application into the periodic update as a backup plan should that those discussions not come to a good conclusion. We would bring whatever conclusion that those discussions may provide back to you in the form of eventually it would need to be an ordinance. That's all I have at this moment. Happy to take any questions now or after we hear from the public. What we're pulling up on the screen here is an interactive map where we continue to develop tools around the, to help illustrate the effect of the different alternatives. And if it works, we have an interactive map because I know some of the geographies can be confusing.
Thank you. And we have some members of the public that would like to speak, but do you have questions before?
Really
we-
quick, because I'm going to forget the words because I already don't know what they are. The very last thing you said with the Hall et al. And you're in discussion. If we move forward tonight with what you have requested, it will absolutely come back whether or not you come to an agreement?
Correct.
So it's not like pass it now, it'll be fine.
Yes.
But it's pass it now and no, really, we will talk about it later.
Correct. With your inclusion of that application in this resolution, we would study it in the environmental impact statement, and it would, all of these will come back to you for a decision after the analysis has been done, that one included.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I guess just to put a finer point on that, if there is an agreement by the Hall et al. Group and the port that settles questions that way, that might come to us as a separate ordinance and then might disappear from the eventual comprehensive plan
Correct.
update. Okay.
Yep, when we turned back to this application at that point, we would say, we've solved it, it's moot.
Okay, great.
Yes,
That's
okay.
helpful.
And because as I understand it, there were some benefits if that could be resolved earlier for all parties. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Angie, who do we have signed up for to speak on item 8 this evening?
First, we'll start with Kristen. If you could come to the podium and state your full name and city of residence, and you've been approved for a total of 5 minutes.
Kristen Hall, City of Everett. Speaking on behalf of myself and the 44 co-applicants, our proposal is to repeal the port compatibility designation and replace it with a regulation that fully accomplishes the stated purpose of the PCA without burdening the existing residences in the historic Rucker Hill neighborhood with the stigma of the PCA designation. I want to remind you that the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend that you advance our proposal after hearing extensive testimony from numerous neighbors and reading many pages of applications and written comments. We would like to note that when we met with the Planning Department, they acknowledged that the notice pertaining to the adoption of this regulation was not at all what it should have been. You'll be hearing more from the neighbors on that point. I found out about this when I attended a neighborhood meeting recently on the Everett 2044 planning process. I just happened to notice that the map included a port compatibility area, which was news to the neighbors, and was not very happy with the answer I received when I asked how it got there. The other neighbors are also outraged about this, although we believe the vast majority of residents are still unaware of this zoning change. We're very concerned about the property values. The other neighbors will be speaking to that point more directly. And we are also very concerned about the ability to work with the port on noise control measures. Our proposed amendment is to eliminate the PCA from Chapter 1917 and replace it with a footnote in the residential use table. This would accomplish the stated purpose of the PCA without imposing what looks like an industrial overlay zone on the historic Rucker Hill neighborhood. As was noted, we're currently in the process of working with the city and the port to refine our proposed solution. We appear to be making good progress so far. We do not believe this is incompatible with the port's application to expand the PCA. We believe that could also be done in a footnote. Or we could establish a PCA which includes the freight corridor without including Rucker Hill. And we would be willing to modify our proposal to allow for that to occur. So council does not have to choose between our application and the port's. And if you feel you do, you should not do that until the additional analysis you're being asked tonight to authorize is completed. That's all.
Thank you, Kristen. The next individual, John, if you could come to the podium. State your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
John Witters, Everett, Washington. I've lived in the Rucker Hill neighborhood since 2004, and I've been in Everett since 1979. I'd like to ask the City Council to approve the amendment proposed by Kristen Hall and the Port area residents regarding the Port of Everett, Port Compatibility area. Like everyone else, I did not receive a notice about the original or the updated Port Compatibility area. And I think the proposed amendment is a better way to handle the concerns of the port. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Laura. If you could please come to the podium. State your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, council members. Laura Gurley, Port of Everett staff. I live in Lake Stevens. Just wanted to say a couple of brief comments. Thank you, Kristen, for acknowledging our efforts so far. We have submitted some revisions to Yorick and his team. Next step is when we're on the same page, then we'll engage the neighbors and bring it to them and keep massaging. That's the goal. Just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we absolutely, in good faith, that is our intention to come to a compromise. Seeing how many folks are here, I did let Lisa know that. I was texting her. She absolutely wanted to convey her thoughts that if she knew that so many folks would be here, she would have been here in person as well. It's important to us. It's very important to our CEO to work with everyone. So just conveying that to you. And then just reiterating how important the port compatibility area is to the port and our, the economic value to the community and having a compatibility area that addresses large developments coming in. The intention is for this to only apply to 10,000 square foot or larger new developments so that they are made aware that they are next to a port that is going to have some contributions to their community in various ways and potential impacts on their development. So again, just wanting to reiterate our efforts that, it's, as Yorick has explained to me, it can be a long process. This whole thing doesn't really wrap up until December of 2024. So we expect to be in front of you again, and we're going to continue to work on this, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Next, I have David Mascarenas. If you could please come to the podium. State your full name and city of residence. And you have 3 minutes to speak.
Council Sponsor. My name is David Mascarenas. I live on Laurel Drive up on Rucker Hill. And I'd like to associate all my comments with Christian Hall's. She studied this issue quite heavily. I've lived up there for 100 years. I live in a historical home built in 1910, and I don't really think the port shows me any kind of respect for my home, or we would not be here now with this industrial overlay, because this industrial overlay pretty much destroys the neighborhood, Rucker Hill. And I know we're now dealing with just Rucker Hill, every other road has one too. But the thing is, my property values are gone. Who would want to live in Rucker, in that area with this happening, and on my quality of life? Now, you've all been up there. It's a fantastic neighborhood. But the port, by doing this, has a free run. Like a week and a half ago, a ship came in, a Weyerhaeuser ship came in. If you were up there, it was lit up all night, banging, crashing. 2:30 in the morning, I couldn't sleep, it's right, all lit up. And then that morning, 7 o'clock, it was dead quiet. 8 o'clock was dead quiet. I left at 8:30, dead quiet. So their work schedule is hurting my quality of life and everyone else's. So that's what I'm saying. I don't hold too much faith in the port coming to some kind of agreement on this. So I think Christian is right. Do away with this and make it a flag note and give the neighborhood some breathing room. So with that now, this issue, that the three issues that are coming up, they're very, very complicated. And it's going to take years to resolve these things. But you guys have an obligation to old neighborhoods like Rucker Hill to help preserve them and help us deal with the port. Sure, the port's a business. Sure, they're claiming they're making all this money. Sure, yeah. But it's still the quality of life, and your home is the biggest investment you have. And you all been in Rucker Hill, everybody's trying their best to maintain their homes. But they can't do it alone when they're under these type of attacks. And that's what it is, or that's what I feel it is. So we need that help, and we need to, if you follow just the recommendation of the Planning Commission, it was to move it forward. But as the director just said, we don't want this thing, I don't want this thing to drag out forever. Let's give a time limit here. But in the meantime, we want you guys to respect what the Planning Commission has done. And if you just look at the tapes, you'll see it was a very spirited debate. Everybody got their say, and it was a unanimous vote. So keep that in mind. But, you're still going to have to do something to help all the older neighborhoods, because you can't stop the growth, and the homes that are being built are just little cigar boxes. So you'll never see neighborhoods like this again. So we all have got to try to protect them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doug, if you could come to the podium. And please state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you, council members. My name is Doug Everly, and I live on Snohomish Avenue on Rucker Hill. And I speak tonight on behalf of what was said before me. And I'm requesting from you, the city council, to vote to pass the Port Area Residence Amendment, which passed out of the Planning Commission with an unanimous vote. Any other action, I believe, would be premature, would cause confusion and lengthy delay, and benefit neither the port nor the neighborhood. For example, based upon the tiny zoning maps currently available to us, as opposed to the much larger maps that were approved and provided as part of the 2018 public notice, we are uncertain, quite honestly, and I in particular, of whether or not I am even included within this zoning overlay. And I'm sure there are many homes within the compatibility area on whether or not their residences are actually included and how they may have been selected. The vast majority in the neighborhood, in fact, may not know that they have even been included, and nor thereby provided an opportunity to speak. We understand that the revenue generated by the port may be less than is required for a port compatibility overlay. And when required, the documents submitted should indicate which inconveniences may reasonably be expected to the impact area and how these may be mitigated. A laundry list of activities, we believe, is insufficient to give the residents any degree of acceptance or rights inuring from the document we will be asked to live under. Before rushing to develop a plan overlay, which may not address these and many other issues, we should instead work with the city, the port, and the residents to grab this opportunity to draft and write a document that will satisfactorily benefit all parties affected by the resulting compatibility overlay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, if Paul could please come to the podium. Is there a Paul? Oh, sorry. Please state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Paul Clark. I live on Laurel Drive with my wife on Rucker Hill. I'm asking that you support the amendment, and this is our statement. The main flaw with respect to the PCA regulations is that they appear to encompass an existing historic neighborhood rather than emphasizing that the neighborhood is an important residential area deserving of consideration, and that only new large development is expected to take special notice of the port's impacts. They imply that the port compatibility is a one-way street, i.e., the port has no responsibility to minimize its impacts on existing residences, some of which were constructed before the port ever came into existence. This is inconsistent with the numerous provisions in the comprehensive plan. As outlined in our application, it seems clear that whatever the cause, the public engagement process has been botched and that the neighbors were deprived in 2020 of any opportunity to explain their concerns. This process presents an ideal opportunity to rectify the error. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, if Clarence could please come to the podium. Please state your full name, city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Clarence Corcoran. I live on Snohomish Avenue on Rucker Hill. And I'm here in support of the footnote amendment to be added instead of creating the port compatibility area. And my main concern is how it would affect the property values of the homes on the hill. The homes in the Rucker Hill area, as you know, are historic. The type of buyers that would attract someone to buy a home on the hill would, first of all, have to have, the homes start just under $1 million and they go to 2, 3, 4 million. And a savvy buyer would quickly just do a simple Google search and they would quickly find this language. Your property is located within the port compatibility area. Occupants of the property within the PCA may be subject to inconveniences or discomforts, including but not limited to noise, glare, fumes, dust, construction activity, smoke, traffic, hours of operation, low overhead flights, and other maritime activities. Now, this language, I think, would even discourage a potential buyer on the hill and may even be a negotiating point to lower the price. I think that the impression that the potential buyer would have was that this is, although it's a residential loan on paper, it's actually would be akin to living in an industrial zone. And I think just the type of buyer that would be attracted to the hill would certainly find this out. I have a conscious also that what is my obligation to tell a potential buyer that, I live in an industrial zone or it's an overlay. And the footnote would avoid this for me. I moved to Everett from Mill Creek. And I moved here because of the beautiful views, and I'm really excited to what the city is doing with the city. I'm very excited every quarter when I get the port side letter that goes over what's going on in the city and the port, and I'm super excited to live here. And I really am delighted to where the city is going. And my presence here today is just to express my concern on my property values. I really believe that Everett's got a lot of things going for it in the future, and there's a lot of things going just with our approach today, or our discussions today with the drug abuse, and that hits me home. My son, during the COVID time, became a drug abuser himself, and he is now clean for 12 months. And, you know, the city, I believe, has got to be a place for everybody. And I moved here because of the views and the opportunity to be in a city that is changing and becoming more vibrant. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, if Bob could please come to the podium. Bob. And please state your full name, city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening. My name is Bob Kerr. I live at 412 Laurel Drive. Been there 27 years with my wife Brenda. We like Everett, but we love our neighborhood. And I'm here tonight to voice an objection to the port incompatibility zone for a variety of reasons. But the PCA is two conflicting interests. One is the port. They're concerned with commerce, period. The historic Rucker neighborhood is concerned with property value, health, safety, public rights, in fact. And that's where the rub comes in. I'd like to address the effect of the PCA on property values. The port has acknowledged that there is an effect on property values that is valid. Let's say that, for instance, let's estimate that there are 250 or 300 homes in the area, in the port compatibility area. And we don't really know. And if I were in your shoes, I would ask the port, how many homes and how many families are involved? Because we're just estimating. We have an 8 by 10. That's it. So let's estimate that there's a devaluation of your home for $50,000. That's damages to our neighborhood between $12 and $15 million. Let's say it's $500,000 per property. You can do the math. So I think it would, our neighborhood or any neighborhood in Everett, it would be unconscionable to have something that would devaluate your property. So tonight I'm respectfully requesting that you take up the amendment that the Planning Commission advanced 100%, all of them unanimously advanced it. I'm requesting that you take it up as soon as you can. Don't wait for the rest of the stuff to come along. I think there's a reason to do that. I think it's legitimate. So just as a footnote to this, I would urge the council to put the Rucker neighborhood, the historic Rucker neighborhood, into the historic overlay. It's not now. That will also help you with House Bill 1110 and single-family zoning. Thank you for your time and courtesy.
Thank you. Melinda, could you please come to the podium? And please state your full name and city of residence, and you have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. My name is Melinda Bargreen. I live at 401 Westmere Drive, which is a continuation of Sharon Crest on Rucker Hill, directly overlooking the port and all of its charming attributes and noise. And one thing that it seems inexplicable to us is that despite the strong objections of a number of neighbors, which led to the withdrawal of a 2018 proposal to create a port compatibility district, a modified but very similar proposal was introduced in 2020 with no meaningful public discourse whatsoever. Even worse, the materials prepared for the public in connection with the 2 neighborhood meetings intended to describe the rethink zoning process, of which these provisions were a part, was actively misleading. There was no reference in the handout then to the port compatibility area, which was the single most important zoning change for area residents. Given the lack of meaningful public notice, it's not surprising in the least that a handful of residents have been confused about the various amendments, including the 2021, which was noted in a previous submission to the Planning Commission. Let's see here. Supposedly, the statement has been made that the port compatibility area does not affect home value, and this is not clearly demonstrated by anyone whatsoever. It's clear to us that if your home is available for potential purchase and people discover that there's a port compatibility zone, they will look further to see what restrictions are implied in that. And I think that's a very serious detriment to the neighborhood. We may be exposed to, as the words go, noise, odors, glare, fumes, dust, construction activity, smoke, traffic, hours of operation, etc. And with that language, the port has significant leverage that it did not have before, arguing that the residents have assumed all these risks, which in fact none of us have. So I and my husband would ask you, the City of Everett Council, to pass our amendment, which was passed out of the Planning Commission with a unanimous vote. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And if David Koenig is here, could you please come to the podium? And please state your full name and city of residence. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Good evening, Dave Koenig, Everett. I'm requesting you advance the Koenig application submitted for review for further analysis and consideration in the periodic review of the comprehensive plan. It is important that the application be evaluated as part of the EIS evaluation and given public comment. I believe this is important so the community can review and see what the effects are of the new state laws. Listen to the expert. Daniel Perelik is the architect who developed the concept of incorporating middle housing into single-family neighborhoods. There are good examples of middle housing which could form the vision for the City of Everett Comprehensive Plan and Code. Mr. Perelik's standard is 2 to 2.5 stories for middle housing in single-family neighborhoods. It is important to address this standard and other design standards in the comprehensive plan and regulation. The state of Washington gave direction by adopting the following definition of middle housing. Middle housing means buildings that are compatible in scale, form, and character with single-family homes. A state background report stated, use design standards to ensure housing fits the character of the neighborhood. This should result in a similar form to traditional single-family and fit in with the character of the existing neighborhoods. Design standards can facilitate community acceptance of affordable housing projects and increased densities. The Everett Comprehensive Plan gives you direction too. EMC 1503-400E states that the following factors shall be considered in reviewing proposed amendments to the Comprehensive Plan. One of those factors is Policy 8.1.6. Enhance the quality of development through the city over time using design guideline standards and design review. Implement the design guideline standards and design review to ensure the quality of development throughout the city is enhanced over time. The proposed policies and regulations have the effect of trying to create a more desirable pattern that I have proposed. It is my belief that without design standards in single-family areas for single-family and middle housing types, there will be the result of a less desirable community, economic disinvestment, and buildings will be built which will detract from the character of the neighborhood like Rucker Hill, because they are affected by these standards that were being proposed. Listen to the expert Daniel Paralek. Follow the direction from the state in the definition of middle housing and their studies, and follow the policy direction in the existing comprehensive plan when you're updating the comprehensive plan. I have provided you, in my correspondence to you, language to insert into your resolution to substitute for the language there. Lastly, you should have a workshop, including the Planning Commission, City Council, and staff. Have Mr. Paralek attend and provide you with his experience and knowledge from many years to help you develop a vision for Everett for the comprehensive plan and regulations. Thank you.
Thank you. And President Stonecipher, that's all we have for people who've signed up for this public hearing.
Great, thank you. We will move now on my agenda now. Here we go. Do we have any questions or comments before we close the public hearing?
I have comments, but they don't need to come to you.
Okay, we can make a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes, and we'll put the motion on the table. Do I hear a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table, and we will now entertain questions and comments. Discussion. Councilmember Vice President Dewey?
Okay, well, I really feel that we need to amend to add the analysis of some design standards in our study. And I think that would be a very important piece in our comp plan. And I appreciate Mr. Koenig's comments, and I really felt that we need to have those put into the scope for the consultant.
Do you have any questions or comments about that, Mr. Stevens-Wacha?
About the statement that Councilmember Tui just made?
Yes, yes. I mean, we have some language from Mr. Koenig, but can you help us understand how that would work and what that would mean?
Yeah, I'll walk through the history a little bit of it. So there are two main components to the Koenig application. There are two, I believe, proposed comprehensive plan policies that say something to the effect of establish design standards to ensure that middle housing is consistent with existing single-family character. The original staff recommendation to the Planning Commission was that those are fine policies to include in the comprehensive plan periodic update and in the environmental review for it and to advance, and that was our recommendation to the Planning Commission. The other segment is a set of regulations including a definition of middle housing, a restriction on middle housing on a parcel that has any sort of environmental critical area on it, a restriction on middle housing on a parcel that fronts on a street that is missing some sort of design requirement that is in our engineering and design standards, and there may have been a few other of those. Those we recommended not including in the periodic update environmental review because of the difficulty of placing that procedurally in the process. The definition, it's seeking to change regulations that have not yet been developed. That's not really the intent of the specific amendment process. The intent is to make a change that can be understood completely from beginning to end. This is kind of a conditional thing. The Planning Commission amended the staff recommendation to also not recommend advancing the comprehensive plan policies. So there's a little bit of a distinction there in how staff saw it and how the planning commission saw it. In general, we definitely agree and have always intended to address design in middle housing. The definition that is proposed in the Koenig Amendment is a fine definition. In fact, I believe it came straight out of state law, and it's a good starting point. It's the type of thing that we would use as a starting point. I think the restrictions, if there's critical environmental areas and on the roadway design or the right-of-way design standards, are problematic for a couple of different reasons. For the environmental areas, if you have a parcel and there's a stream buffer on one corner of it, but you're seeking to develop on another corner, I'd be concerned about the legal nexus for regulating out a type of development where it's not actually impacting the critical environmental area. Similarly, with the substandard roadway, sounds harsh, but I think most of them, in fact, I checked with our Public Works Department, the standards have evolved over the years much faster than our roadways, sidewalks, curb ramps, and all of that, let alone the presence of even a pothole or something like that could trigger that. That would be so restrictive as to remove nearly all parcels from middle housing, and then it wouldn't be consistent with state law. So I think those two were problematic. The definition was fine. We just don't know exactly what to do with it. And so that was the rationale behind our recommendation to advance the policies, because those are understandable on how they fit within the process, but not the regulations. Design, we're 100% on board on staff, and we fully anticipate developing design standards that are within the restrictions that several of the new, well, the middle housing bill, and then there's a bill on objective design standards. So they do need to be objective. They do need to have parity with the design standards that we require for a new house. Has to be no more restrictive than design standards for a new duplex, for instance. But within those constraints that are provided by the legislature, we're 100% on board with that. What those design standards wind up being, that's going to be the trick. We will work with the Planning Commission, we'll work with the public, we'll work with Mr. Koenig. I'd be happy to hear any ideas that he has, and then, and of course, we'll work with you on that, on the design standards. So I think we're fine with the general thrust of all of it. Difficult to place the regulations in the specific amendment process. Comprehensive plan policies were okay with us, and
Okay, but so the question I have then is with regards to the action we're taking tonight, is it incumbent upon us to express our desire for design standards? I mean, the way I see it is, and I totally appreciate that you're trying to create a process that is, understandable and known for the developer, but I'm more concerned about a process that is understandable and known by the people who already own property in our community, not the developers that come from outside our community, build a home, and they're gone. They couldn't care less about what happens, or many of them. And so I'm trying to make sure that we have a process that helps our neighbors and our neighborhoods understand what's going to happen. We're talking about putting a lot more density into our community, and frankly, our track record has been pretty crappy about having decent design. And I can drive down, you can go into any neighborhood and they'll show you all of the infill development that has been, in their opinion, a failure because it doesn't look good, it doesn't match the neighborhood, it's too weird for the lot, too big, too tall, too close to the road, there's just so many complaints about that. And so what I don't want to do is move forward on this and miss the opportunity to have, some good public input about what that design process should look like, because that's where the rubber meets the road. I think most people in our community don't mind having more people living here, but what they don't want is to have it at their expense. And so that's the thing that I'm concerned about, and I'm just not exactly sure how to make sure that we protect against that inevitability. Because I've been here for 20 years, and I've been through a lot of those times when you've got the people with the pitchforks that are showing you the house that went into their, or the multifamily that went into their neighborhood, and it didn't have good design. Could have been great, but it wasn't, because it just didn't, we didn't have we didn't have the regulations in place. And while I recognize we want to add more housing, I just want to make sure it's done in a good way. Enough from me. Councilmember Zarlingo.
So I guess then, separate from my intended comment, but I guess to clarify that then, if we advance the recommendations as we've been provided by the Planning Commission, then we will have an opportunity as we work through those to work out these design standards with a focus on doing so. That will be an opportunity as this is, okay.
Yes, I will promise to you that we will talk about design, we will work on design, and we will try to get to the best place. Ultimately, the decision rests with you on adopting the comprehensive plan and the development regulations that precede it, and we will walk through that process over the next 18 months with you. I cannot promise that the result, that there is a result that will satisfy everyone. Design is difficult. I'll give just one example, is pitched roofs. Very common. That would be a core piece of residential character on certain streets. That is going to be very difficult to require that all development have pitched roofs, and there's going to be a diversity of opinions on that. So I'll guarantee that we will talk about those kinds of things and try to come to the best place that we can, but probably not everyone is going to be happy.
Yes, and we'll also be constrained by the recently passed regulations, 1110, 1337, I think it was, the state. And I guess then I'm going to kind of gather together my thoughts on this, because I've been spending much of time reviewing the Planning Commission meetings and some of the going back to December, I think, when some of the ADU stuff was heard, and actually Mr. Koenig commented on that in some detail as well. But I think I've been impressed by the work that's been done that way, keeping in mind that, you know, it's clear that both the port and our residential neighborhoods are critical for Everett, but there's always been some tension going on between a city that is partly industrial and partly residential, and I'm hopeful that way then that there's going to be a process that can actually work out with the port and the residents to meet all of their needs that way. Without necessarily having the PCA as the solution to that, as long as they can come to a solution that they feel good about. And I've been impressed specifically about the methodical and careful way these proposals were handled. It took a lot of time, but even more time for the staff and the commissioners. So I'm happy to see that. And well, let's see. I guess, as some have mentioned, it was a unanimous vote by the commission to recommend this package for the council. And I guess I want to say that's pretty much answered the questions I had. I do intend to vote for to forward these recommendations, because I think they've been done with the right kind of process, bringing in the right kind of perspective, and they aren't committing us to any one specific thing, to one outcome, but they do include the family of things that should give us what we need.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Great, thank you. Some of the neighbors from Rucker Hill shared some frustrations and concerns about the notification process of when the port compatibility area was implemented. So I was hoping you could walk us through what the notification process and requirements are, and moving forward, if there are neighbors that haven't received notice yet, how the city could have better outreach and engagement to reach the whole neighborhood.
That is a difficult one. So starting with the 2020 rethink zoning, I think from the record that we've reviewed, there were it was a humongous package of changes that changed zoning classifications throughout the city, changed development regulations, reorganized every chapter within, and then also had this port compatibility area or overlay added with it. Clearly, the result was that the properties and the people most affected by it did not come away with the knowledge that this was happening. Direct mailers, direct conversation, I guess, is the gold standard for doing that, but that is not feasible for most planning processes. It's about $1 a mailer, and we have a large city with a lot of those, a lot of properties in it. So it would break the bank to try to send mailers about every change. There are other ways to do it more cost effectively. I think what was done satisfied legal requirements, but obviously did not get the result of informing the neighbors of the changes that were going to happen. We have notice requirements in Title 15 of our code, different notice requirements for different types of decisions. Generally, a rezone would result in a direct mailer. Other types of legislative actions typically are published in the newspaper and our website, and then the department is free to enhance those minimum notice requirements with other methods. We're trying to do that as much as possible with this update. This periodic update is, again, a multifaceted and significant, and it will impact everybody in the city to some degree, hopefully much more positive than negative. We're probably not going to be able to send a mailer to everybody, but we're using a whole variety of tools to try to get the word out. Part of your question was about how to notify neighbors that this effort is going on, or that there was a specific amendment request seeking to remove a port compatibility overlay affecting their property. We have not taken any steps on the staff side to supplement what the neighborhood has done on their own and taken their own initiative to let the neighbors know and get organized, and I congratulate them on that. It seems like the process is working in the sense that there is an organized group of folks that are interested in this, and they're participating with staff and with the port. And that's where we're at with that.
Thank you. I know there will be some upcoming town halls and open houses and whatnot. Will each of the amendments be highlighted during those events so that maybe folks who didn't know that for any of the amendments, if they were next door to it, that or included in a space, that it would be a way to inform them that the an amendment is on the table that might affect them directly.
Becky, so for some of these that are site-specific, these are pretty close to a rezone, so I think we have collected addresses. And did we do a mailer already? For like the site-specific changes?
We have not yet. We would intend to do that for any site-specific. As you can see, many of them are already in our proposed alternatives. And so, yeah, you're correct. The site-specific ones would definitely have that radius of neighbor notification.
Great. Yeah, I don't think anybody likes being surprised, so the better we can do with outreach and engagement, I think better off folks will be. That's all I have. I just have one last comment for Clarence. Congratulations to your son. That's a big feat.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Councilmember Vogely.
The Rucker Hill Historic District is a well-preserved and cohesive residential area significantly associated with the early 20th century development of Everett. Constructed mostly between 1905 and the Great Depression, Rucker Hill includes an important collection of domestic architecture from the period, including outstanding examples of the colonial revival, American Foursquare, Craftsman, and bungalow styles. Moreover, the district is a discrete suburban enclave, richly landscaped and characterized by large lots, steep topography, a central curvilinear street that winds up the hill, and dramatic vistas of the industrial port and Puget Sound. Historically, Rucker Hill was an early neighborhood for the city's economic and social elite, and home of some of Everett's leading businessmen and professionals. The contrast between the suburban character of Rucker Hill and the industrial districts, which it overlooks, is a graphic reflection of the social stratification of Everett in the early 20th century. Today, the district retains its historic character. The wide class gap that existed between the wealthy and the workers was reflected in the city's residential communities. Most of Everett's neighborhoods were characterized by modest cottages, with the notable exception of some dramatic homes on Grand and Rucker Avenues. But in 1905, the pioneering Rucker family moved to a hill overlooking Port Gardner Bay, and an elite residential community slowly developed around the family mansion. It was the first such suburban retreat in the city. And that, my friends, comes from livingplaces.com. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse?
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes?
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes.
I had talked last meeting on the 9th about an interactive map for
Yes.
folks to be able to, if I could just demonstrate that real quick.
would be
It's under
great.
construction, but folks will be able, this is going to be on our story map, so there'll be information before and after this. But basically, anybody can press on an alternative and then go down to the parcel level and see where they fit within, if they're in one of these growth geographies or not. So we've got alternatives 1, 2, and 3, and then our growth geographies. And again, all of that information. So when we launch this, we'll make sure that you're aware and you can share it with your folks as well.
Thank you.
Becky, is this going to be part of the Map Everett site, or is it going to be a separate site?
I think we're going to try to put it in both places.
So maybe as a layer on Map Everett then that can be,
It's very similar to that, but I'm not sure yet.
okay, I look forward to exploring it,
GIS
thank you.
specialist, so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's a good follow-up. That brings us to the end of our agenda. We are now going to move into our executive session, which is expected to last 5 minutes with action expected to follow. And so we will be back. City Council has returned from our executive session, and I will ask Deputy Attorney Rammerman to help us with the action.
We're asking the city to authorize the mayor to sign a settlement agreement in Primo versus City of Everett that will include the following terms: the city's payment of $725,000, the plaintiff's dismissal of the claims against the city and its agents, the plaintiff's agreement to hold the city harmless in its pursuit of co-defendant Corson, and an agreement not to disparage the city.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second, the motion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Fosse? Yes. Councilmember Zarlingo?
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely?
Yes.
Vice President Tui?
Yes.
President Stonecipher?
Yes, and with no further business, we are now adjourned.